an original MCM production.
Good morning and welcome to Community Brainstorming Conference. We appreciate this wonderful audience and all the interest that you're showing in electing the people who are going to represent you. Each of these candidates have received a question that pertains to their office. And while they will give other information in their presentation, they are also expected to answer these questions. They did get them in advance. There's a Supreme Court, there's judges. Oh, here you are, Mayor. Now, after the mayor speaks, and by the way, I did invite Mr. Donovan 5 or 6 times. I called the office, I called the house, I sent it to the campaign email. Okay, I did everything but knock on the door. So I even sent him the question. So he has been invited. But what we're going to do is we're going to ask the mayor this question. He's going to take his 11 minutes, and then you can ask him a couple of questions before he leaves. But you cannot go back and forth, nor can you yell out for the audience. So I'm going to ask the question first, and I'll even hand it to you. And the question is, if re-elected mayor, what do you see as Milwaukee's direction in the future? In other words, what do you have planned in terms of job growth, addressing unemployment, crime reduction, and other important urban concerns? And as long as you answer it, you can weave it in however you want. Good morning.
Good morning. I'll turn on my own timer so I keep myself going. Well, good morning. I am delighted to be here. I've been here many, many times, as you know, and it's always a great place. I consider this Milwaukee's town hall because every month there are so many people here, and I'm honored to be here this morning. I'm also honored to be your mayor, as I have been for the last 12 years, and I look forward to serving another 4 years as the mayor of the entire city. And I say that because I think that's an important part of this job, that you have to have a mayor who is going to be someone who's going to unite a very diverse city, a city that is diverse racially, economically, ideologically. And what I have tried to do, as long as I've been mayor, is to bring this city together. And so for 2 nights ago, I was on the far south side for a forum where both candidates appeared. Both my opponent and I appeared there because I feel it's important for me to represent the south side as well as the north side. I am here today on the north side. I don't see the candidate who is also running for this office. Maybe he will come later. I do see James Matthew, who was a candidate that I'm glad to have his support as mayor of the city of Milwaukee. So I want to talk about some priorities, but first I want to share some news with you about the city of Milwaukee. Some of it's good news, some of it's bad news. The good news is at the end of 2015, there were more Milwaukee residents working than at the end of any year since 2001. And I'm using my words carefully because there's a year-end analysis that the state actually does as to how many residents are working. So let me state that again. At the end of 2015, more Milwaukee residents were working than at the end of any year since 2001. That is good news. No matter how you measure it, that is good news. Here's the bad news, and every person in this room knows it. There is a wage problem locally. There's a wage problem at the state level, and there's a wage problem nationally. So you have more people working, but sometimes they have to work 2 or 3 jobs. So while they have jobs, and that's great, I love that, we have to deal with the wage issue, and that has to be done at many, many different levels. But there's another issue that really affects a family's ability to survive, and that's health care. And again, here we have some good news, and I just want to share a story about how I work and how we get things done. At the end of October, sometime in October, we got a call from the White House. And it's always exciting to get a call from the White House, so I'm a name dropper just to say that. And they asked us whether we wanted to be involved in a competition. And the competition was to see which city could do the best job in improving the number of people who have health care. And we thought about it for about 1/10 of a second and said, yeah, we want to do that. We'll take that challenge. And so we got the report back in the middle of December that we were first. We got a report back at the beginning of January that we were still first. But I always thought this was going to be like an NBA game, or sadly maybe like the Badger game last night, where the whole thing would be decided in the last 30 seconds or minute. But we got the call in the beginning of February from the Chief of Staff of the White House saying that Milwaukee did a better job than any community in this competition, 20 communities, in making sure that people have health care. And that's something everybody should be proud of. The county was involved, the state was involved, Congresswoman Moore was involved. We had many, many partners that were involved in that. So it was a team effort. But that's the way I approach things. How can we bring people together? How can we get things done? So we know we have to do that. So looking forward, what do I want to do? Century City, A.O. Smith. I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. It's right, basically 30th and Capitol Drive. That's an area where I am going to focus like a laser beam on working with the private sector and the public sector to get jobs located on that site. There's approximately 80 acres there, and we know what the issue is. There are too many people in the heart of the central city who don't have jobs. And I want to make sure that we are creating jobs there. That's something that's very, very important to me, and that's going to be a focus. Jobs has always been a focus. We've been very successful in the Menominee Valley. The old PAP site has done well. So we've had some successes, but we have to do more, and I know we have to do more. Second issue I want to touch on is police-community relations, because this is obviously an issue that's important in our community as well. I believe that this has to be a city where the residents can work with and respect the police. It also has to be a city where the police and the residents where the police can work with and respect the citizens. It has to be a two-way street. And that's what I've tried to do. That's why we've had intensive training. That's why we now have body cameras. That's why we're going to continue to do what we can to improve police-community relations. But I want to talk about an issue where my opponent and I disagree, because it really goes to the heart of how we view this city. And I apologize to the Supreme Court justices and candidates, because it's an issue before them. So if you want to leave the room, I don't want to do anything ex parte conversations here. But it has to do with residency. Residency, to me, is something that's very, very important. If you look at Baltimore last year had riots. 79% of the police officers for Baltimore do not live in the city. 79% of the police officers for Baltimore do not live in the city. Well over half of the police officers in Ferguson don't live in the city. I don't think there's a person in this room that thinks police-community relations would improve if our police and firefighters left this city. And I'll just give you a quick example. There was an attempted robbery on 55th and Capitol Drive about 2 weeks ago. An 83-year-old woman, someone tried to steal her car. There was an off-duty police officer who was there, and he thwarted the robbery. Now, would that have happened if he lived in Mugwanago or Muskego? No. I want our police officers, our firefighters, our public employees to be here because I like them. I want them to be part of our community. And the fact is, this was a decision that was a local decision for 75 years. I can't think of a better definition of a local issue than something that was decided 75 years ago. And the legislature and the governor decided they were going to change that. And 14 out of 15 aldermen wrote to the governor and said, please don't put this in your budget. There was only one alderman who refused to sign that letter, and he's the other candidate for this office. When it became a court case, he was one of only 2 aldermen that refused to support the city's taking a legal position on this. You have to have a mayor who's going to fight for the people who want to be in the city and not for the people who want to leave the city. And that's a basic difference. You have to have a mayor who's fighting for the people who want to be in the city, not the people who are trying to leave the city. So I know that we've got some serious issues there, and we're trying to deal with them, and we're trying to keep it together. And I'm proud of the work that we've done. I'm proud of the fact that we've reduced teenage pregnancy in this community by over 50%. I'm glad that our infant mortality rating has gone down. And I'm glad that this is a city where we're fighting back. And people ask me where I get my energy, and this is what I tell them. I go to every neighborhood in this city. In fact, the reason that I have to leave is I'm going to go with Andre Lee Ellis. We got this. I think many of you are familiar with We Got This. I'm going to take a walk with Andre and his young men through the neighborhood there. And what I see in every neighborhood in this city is I see people who are trying to do what's right for their kids, trying to take care of their parents. No matter what the poverty is, no matter what the challenges are, they're fighting back. And as long as I'm mayor, I'm going to be fighting with them. And that's where I get my energy, because there are so many good people in good neighborhoods. And I see the news and I hear the naysayers and all that, and I'm at the point in my life where I just shut out those naysayers, the people who hate Milwaukee. We can't let them bring us down. We have to fight back, and that's what I continue to do. So I would be honored to have your support on April 5th. We do have lawn signs here. We've done a scientific analysis. If you put a Tom Barrett lawn sign in your lawn, your property values go up 20% overnight. It's the only promise I'll make. The only promise I'll make. So again, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you. See, he kept that short. Where's Spencer Coggs? Now, we're going to hold him to that property value. And I better not see your name on my tax bill again. Mr. Kissell, yeah, I better not see your name, you know, what, the tax bill. He can take a couple of questions before he goes knocking on doors. We do have mayors.
No, I'm going with Andre Lee Ellis. I'm not.
You're going knocking on doors then. So we can take a couple of questions if you'd like to step to the mic. Any questions? No, no, you need to come up here and make it because you're on TV.
Well, unless it's a bad comment. I don't want her to be on TV if it's a bad comment.
Can you come up here? I don't want Val Wiley, you know, mad at me. Matta lives here. Okay. And could you state your name, ma'am?
Okay, my name is Chris.
Oh, it's on.
Originally, the origins of the police force were to be part of the community, to protect the community against crime. They didn't have any guns. And so for police to live in the area and the city where they're doing their job, I think is absolutely essential. Unfortunately, we still have guns. The image of America is the lone cowboy on the horse. So I think we need to have more Indians to round up those cowboys. But
It's got to be brief.
okay, that's it. Thanks very much. Okay. So,
You want to reach my...
I'm not getting the Cowboys and Indians right
Okay, no cowboys and Indians. Let me set out the ground rules, because there's a rumor that I have been known to put people out of line, but I can't believe everything you hear. This gentleman, you get one statement brief, one comment. We're not going to have any dissertations in here, and we got a lot of lawyers in here. So, sir, could you state your name and ask your question or make your statement?
Yes, I've been a long supporter of Mayor Tom Barrett for a long time. And what my question is, a few months ago, I almost got killed by a person running a red light. And you know, and they ran red lights constantly. I see so many accidents from running red lights. And I just wanted the mayor to be aware of it. And if it was possible, I know some cities has cameras. Chicago, I believe, have one. But we definitely need something, because there is a barrage of accidents by people's running red lights. They have no respect for the community at all. So this is my question to the mayor, is that if something is not done by this shortly and quickly, there's going to be a lot of tragedies behind that. I almost got killed by somebody running a red light.
Okay.
Thank you.
But you can't answer long, Ms. Love
I'll be
said.
very quick. I'll be very quick.
That's an issue, as is stolen vehicles, and we've seen an increase in stolen vehicles. Our police have done a very good job. Our arrests for stolen vehicles have gone up 300%, and we are currently working with District Attorney Chisholm, with the judges, because there has to be meaningful consequences, particularly for repeat offenders. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing repeat offenders, and there has to be meaningful consequences. And I'm not saying you send them to Lincoln Hills. Lincoln Hills, we all know, has lots and lots of issues, but there has to be local consequences so that these young people know that we're not doing them any favors if they're doing this over and over again, and we're not doing the public any favors if they're doing it over and over again. And we actually had 15 people killed in the course of about 12 months in stolen vehicles. So this is an issue, and those are a lot of times the people who are running these red lights.
Oh,
Okay,
thank
that's
you
it.
very much.
Give me the hook. Thank you
Okay.
very
Oh,
much.
did you ask for the vote?
Oh, I did ask for a vote. I'll ask for it again, but just once. Vote for me once, please, on April 5th. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Love. I'm going to take a a moderator's privilege and introduce you to Mr. Ben Jealous, and was it president at the time, who is a former president of the national NAACP. And it's such an honor to have you, even though I met you in New York. So he's going to just speak briefly, but you're also going to speak at an event at the African American Women's Center. So if you want to hear him speak more, but he's going to talk about a few issues that are important to us, and then he's going to ask you all to come out and vote, at least once.
Well, good morning. Good morning. It is great to be here with you. You know, this is this time of year, this time every 4 years, we just take a moment to reflect about where our country's headed. And I'm here as a surrogate, as a national surrogate for Bernie Sanders. He'll be in Madison this afternoon. And if you got time, I encourage you to drive up there and see him. It's really something to behold. Right now, our country really is at a choice point. You know, we have the Trump campaign, and I would say for people of good conscience, regardless of party, our objective has to make sure that that man does not end up president of these United States. In Bernie Sanders, we have someone, you know, I grew up in a movement family, not surprising when you become president of the NAACP at 35. And in my family, when we looked at candidates, we used the same test that Dr. King gave us. First is whether or not that person is what Dr. King referred to as a genuine leader. Dr. King said that a genuine leader was not a follower of consensus, they were a molder of consensus. And when you see somebody start out at basically 0 in the polls, 3% when you have a margin of 4% is 0. And now is within 300 earned votes, 300 earned delegate votes of being the front runner in this race. And you'll see the gap narrowed this weekend. That's because they are a molder of consensus. But Dr. King also gave us a test for how to measure people on the issues that is, frankly, unfortunately, still too relevant today. He talked about the triplets of evil. He said that those giant triplets were racism, militarism, and greed. And you wonder why our young people are signing up to support Bernie Sanders, black and white, brown, Asian, Native American, in such record numbers? It's because they wake up every day and they wonder if they or their friend is going to be killed by the cops. It's because they can't remember, when you talk to them in college, when their country wasn't at war. And it's because they were children going through the Great Recession. And they don't ever want to see that again. I would encourage you to look at both candidates on those 3 issues. Dig deep on both candidates on those 3 issues, and you'll see that Bernie has been consistent the entire time. But whoever you vote for, please make sure that you turn out and vote in the primary, and you drive everybody out in this general. Our country has a choice point. On the one side, we have Donald Trump with all of his violence and hatred and greed, and on the complete other side, you have Bernie Sanders. And if you're up in Madison this afternoon, you'll see pulling together people across class, across race, across religion. It's the most beautiful thing I've seen. I hope that you will come and join us. Thank you, and God bless.
The next race, so I'm going to the top of the ticket here, and is the Supreme Court race, and we have Justice Rebecca Bradley, who will go first. I'm going to alternate because everybody wants to go last, so I'm going to do first, last. Justice Bradley, and her question is, the United States Constitution has wording and concepts that may be confusing for some to interpret, including equal protection and due process. How will you interpret these concepts as they apply to various groups, including women, gays, minority groups, that may not be directly included in the wording of the Constitution like me.
Thank you, Dr. Malone. Good morning, community brainstorming. I was born and raised right here in the city of Milwaukee, and I have lived in Wisconsin my entire life. I would like you to note that currently, of the 7 justices on the court, 4 are from or are currently living in Madison. Until I joined the court, it had been almost a decade since Milwaukee had any representation on the court, and I think it's important for Milwaukee to have some representation on the court at this time. I bring over 20 years of legal and judicial experience to the Supreme Court bench. I graduated from the University of Wisconsin 20 years ago, and I practiced law for over 16 years. I was a civil litigator, a business transactional attorney, an arbitrator, and I was also vice president of legal operations for an international software company headquartered right here in Wisconsin. After practicing law for over 16 years, I felt called to serve first the people of Milwaukee County as a judge, and I was really honored when the people of Milwaukee County elected me to serve as a circuit court judge. I earned almost 54% of the vote in a hotly contested race, and I had substantial bipartisan support. I served in children's court, where I heard cases involving termination of parental rights, children in need of protection or services, and juvenile delinquency. I dedicated myself to strengthening families, protecting children in need, and keeping my community safe. I treated everyone in my courtroom with dignity and respect. When I was at Children's Court, I presided over approximately 700 to 800 cases annually. I have direct experience in delivering my decisions to the people whose lives would be affected forever by my decisions. This is really important experience because I gained an understanding of how my decisions directly affect and impact people, and this is experience that my opponent just doesn't have. I next served as a Wisconsin Court of Appeals judge in District 1, Milwaukee County. And now it is my honor and my privilege to serve all of you on the Wisconsin Supreme Court. I am the first justice in state history to have served as a circuit court judge, a court of appeals judge, and now as a justice. I decided to become a judge because I care very deeply about our community and our state. When I was growing up in the city of Milwaukee during the 1980s recession, my family struggled like many Milwaukee families. In fact, my family fell below the federal poverty line. But I was blessed with parents who instilled in their 4 children a strong work ethic, the value of education, and the importance of God and family. And as I'm sure at least some of you in the room today can appreciate, growing up in a small house with 1 bathroom and a big family taught me many lessons about being fair. I became a judge because I believe it is so important that we have judges, and especially justices, on our state's highest court who understand our duty to say what the law is and not what we may wish it to be. I believe it is so important that we have judges and justices who are willing to set aside our personal policy preferences, our opinions, and our political preferences, and apply the law as it is written by the people's elected representatives in the legislature and as it is written in our state and federal constitutions. My question related to the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause in the United States Constitution. That those clauses say, and I'm quoting right from the Constitution, which I always have with me, "Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws." I do not need to go beyond the language in our Constitution to tell you that the Due Process Clause and the Equal Protection Clause apply to each and every person, regardless of race, gender, or sexual orientation, or any other characteristic. Those clauses apply to every person, period. I am devoted to our community in Milwaukee County. I was a member of the Milwaukee Forum, an organization of diverse leaders who come together to talk about issues that impact Milwaukee, to promote greater racial understanding, and to improve the well-being of Milwaukee. When I was an attorney, I volunteered my services to the families of developmentally disabled children in guardianship proceedings. When I was a children's court judge, I became a member of the Casey Committee, Comprehensive Approaches for Children Who Have Been Sexually Exploited, and I continue to speak out in the community and around the state on the evils of human trafficking. For many years now, I have been a member of the Wisconsin State Advisory Committee to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, and I continue to serve on the board of the Milwaukee Tennis and Education Foundation, which provides programming for Central City children to allow them to play tennis and to promote life skills and improve their academic performance. I discovered community brainstorming when I was running for circuit court judge a few years ago. And yes, I started coming because I was a candidate for that office. But I think most of you who attend regularly know that I kept coming long after my race was over because I am part of this community and I care very deeply about this community and I want to be part of the dialogue that happens here. It's very important dialogue. My opponent is going to get up and speak and emphasize to you how I was appointed by Governor Walker, but you all already know that. I'm asking that you make your decision on who to vote for in this race based on the other things you know about me, about the important work that I've done in this community, about my public service, and about my strong drive and my continued work to protect the children in our community. I ask that you remember that I have been part of this community my entire life, and I keep coming here because I care about Milwaukee, because I care about the children in our community, and because I care about each one of you. And I'm asking for your vote on April 5th. For those of you who celebrate, I hope you have a very blessed Easter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person to speak is Appeals Court Judge JoAnne Kloppenburg. Okay. Welcome. No problem.
Good morning, Brainstorming. It is such an honor and a privilege to be speaking with all of you here who are part of what the future of Milwaukee is going to be and to look like. And I want to impress upon you how part of the answer to what Milwaukee will be is this race, is the outcome of this election for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. This race is about the future of our court. It's about what kind of court it ought to be and what kind of justices we should be electing to the court. As to the specific question that we were both asked about the due process and the equal protection clauses, that is a very penetrating question because I agree that these critical legal rules, everyone's individual rights to equal protection and to due process, are often not well understood, and we cannot allow them to be hollow promises. History matters to our understanding of the law. The rights to due process and equal protection guaranteed by the 14th Amendment are among the hard-won fruits of the Civil War. The post-war amendment was specifically adopted to combat arbitrary and discriminatory treatment of African Americans. And as we've heard throughout the sessions that you all have here every month, there remain racial disparities throughout the criminal justice system that we still need to address. And even outside of legal decisions, certainly the Supreme Court can be a player in working with circuit courts, local governments, nonprofits, and the legislature and the state bar to address those disparities. This is important history, not only from the Civil War, but since, as we've heard it recounted at these brainstorming sessions, that informs our understanding of the Constitution. And I also bear in mind that the very reason we have our federal and state constitutions is because some rights are just too important to trust to official claims of goodwill or the votes of the majority. This point was very powerfully made most recently by Justice Kennedy in the gay marriage opinion. The concerns underlying this question are the mirror image of the hopes that I have heard people express for our court in Milwaukee and around the state. You all know what the court ought to be. It ought to be a place where every justice approaches every case with an open mind, where the outcome of any case is not a foregone conclusion, where everybody gets a fair shake, and where everyone is confident that justice is being done without fear or favor. Everywhere I go, people tell me they want all three branches of government to work for them, they want their local governments to be allowed to work for them, and they want the court to serve as the independent check and balance on the other branches of government as it was designed to be. And that's why I'm running, because I'm unwilling to surrender our court to the partisan politics and the special interests that threaten to undermine its independence and integrity. And that's what distinguishes me from my opponent: independence, integrity, and experience. I am honored to have the endorsement of community leaders like Congresswoman Gwen Moore, Judge Joe Donald, and State Senator Lena Taylor. And with endorsements like theirs, people are coming together around the state to form a winning coalition that will make change happen on April 5th. Both candidates tell you they'll be independent and impartial when they get on the court. And the challenge for voters is to determine who is most likely to live up to that promise. And you can tell by how we got where we are. I got where I am by being elected by the people of Wisconsin to the Wisconsin Court of Appeals in 2012, and I've issued over 750 written appellate decisions in the 3.5 years since. I'm honored that my colleagues have chosen me to be the presiding judge in my district. Before I was elected, I served all of the people of Wisconsin for 23 years, starting in 1989, as an Assistant Attorney General in the Wisconsin Department of Justice. I served Attorney Generals from both political parties, representing the interests of all of the people of Wisconsin in courts around the state, and argued many times in the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. Before I went to law school, I served in the Peace Corps in Botswana and Africa for 3 years, planning and obtaining international financing for rural development projects around the country. I returned to the States and started the Federal Nutrition Program for women, infants, and children in 2 poor rural counties in upstate New York. Moved to Madison in 1985, where I've lived in the same house and raised my 3 kids. I started law school right away with the 2 oldest of those kids, 3 years and 6 months. I paid my way by teaching legal writing. I interned for Justice Shirley Abrahamson. I graduated with honors and awards, clerked for the federal court, Chief Judge Barbara Crabb in Madison for a year before joining the Department of Justice. I chose the law because I value its power and its potential to be a force for positive change. I chose to work at the Department of Justice for the opportunity to work on cases that have direct impacts on all of our lives, and I chose to run for the Court of Appeals, and I'm choosing to run now for the Supreme Court, because we need a candidate people can count on to keep special interests and partisan politics off the court and to maintain the independence and integrity of the court. The differences between how I got where I am and how my opponent got where she is could not be clearer. She was appointed 3 times to 3 judgeships in 3 years by Governor Walker. The fast-track nature of her appointment indicates it was politics, not qualifications, that got her on the court. And what's very telling is The people who are closest to the work she's done in Milwaukee, I have twice as many judges from the Milwaukee County Circuit Court endorsing me as she does, and we all know the results of the recent Milwaukee Bar Association poll, where people who had an opinion, 53% of those folks said that my opponent is unqualified for service on the Supreme Court. She has a very partisan background and is bringing that partisan background and partisan approach to the law into this campaign. The Republican Party is helping to pay for her campaign operations and staffing. Our Republican Lieutenant Governor, Rebecca Kleefisch, sent out a fundraising letter for her on stationery that came from the Republican Party. There is no difference in their minds between the partisan politics that goes on in the executive and legislative branches and what they want to have go on in our court. Partisan politics and those agendas that go with them do not belong on our Supreme Court. Rebecca Bradley was heard talking about her friends running ads for her when she first ran in 2013 after being appointed. And sure enough, the Club for Growth put in $167,000 to help her win that election. And her friends have put in millions of dollars now in this campaign in ads supporting her and attacking me. Very deceitful, inaccurate, misleading ads that that misstate the law, that distort the legal system, and that shamelessly exploit victims of crimes. But thanks to folks like you and everyone else around the state, I'm not scared about what the special interests might say about me. I've stood up to them my entire career. What's really important is we must all come together to reject the politics as usual that don't belong in our court, to reject the special interests that want the court to work for them, not the people of Wisconsin. We need to come together for independence and integrity. Those are qualities I've been standing for my entire career. We need to come together for a justice who's qualified to serve on our Supreme Court. I have a proven track record, having issued over 750 appellate court decisions that show I am an independent, impartial, fair, thoughtful, principled, and disciplined appellate court judge. We need to come together for a court that works as it should, as an independent check and balance on the other branches of government, and a place where we are all confident that everyone gets a fair shake. For over 26 years, I've been standing up for all of the people of Wisconsin. I would be so honored to have your votes and your support so that I can continue doing just that as a justice on our Supreme Court. Thank you so much.
I will say this, people are timing themselves. This is the first political forum I've ever done where people time themselves. That's a hint to the rest of you. Good morning, Senator Taylor. Well, the district attorney's back there too, but I'm going one, the other. So I'm going to call forth State Senator Chris Larson, who is running for Milwaukee County Executive, and I'm going to read your question just in case. All right. And it says, if elected county executive, what are some of the initiatives you will implement to better the lives of Milwaukee County residents, and how will you go about implementing your plans? Please provide specifics on these plans. And I think the most important part of the question is the implementation. Right. Okay, I'll leave it there so you can see.
All right, sounds good.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Good. It's good to hear. Everybody's getting ready for Easter. So thank you all for being here, and a big thank you to Dr. Malone and the organizers for piecing this together. This is just amazing that have so many candidates who I know are running around everywhere to be here and to be able to speak directly to our voters. So a big thank you to them for doing this. So I'm running for county executive. We've been running now for 6 months. Thank you. We are looking to make sure, to answer the question directly, I'm a strong supporter of job creation and economic opportunity, right? We're running to ensure that Milwaukee County has a living wage. One of the big things we look at implementing is making sure that every family has access to a living wage. So people who are working 40 hours a week are not struggling in poverty. There was an effort to move forward with something similar to that. There was an effort to push the living wage ordinance by now Representative Bowen, and that was stood in the way by the current county executive. They were able to get it done. I believe we should implement that fully and expand it to make sure that those who are, when we're spending public dollars, there's going to be a public good so that our neighbors are not struggling in poverty. I also want to establish a living wage outside of the public sector. Now, how do we do that? We do that by making sure that when we're spending money on economic development, that we make sure that those that are getting the money are also going to be hiring people and paying a living wage, right? I think that's important. As we are spending public dollars, there needs to be that public good associated with it. That was something that I and other legislators prioritized when we were talking to the Bucks directly during negotiations when they were looking for taxpayer dollars. So that was important, and I don't see why when we're spending economic development dollars that shouldn't be a part of every conversation. Also want to make sure we provide fair county employee contracts. That's another piece of that, of making sure that we're working collaboratively. I do not, contrary to my opponent, I don't think Act 10 was a good thing. And I think it's better to work collaboratively with our workers. My opponent has compared a repeal of Act 10 to a nuclear holocaust. I think it's important to work with the workers, work with our neighbors. These are people who live in our neighborhoods. And so we want to work as collaboratively as we can, as allowed by law. So we'll do that. Also want to expand access to worker rights, earned paid time off. That's something I believe in as a legislator. I want to demand economic development jobs go to workers in our community. This, again, was something that we prioritized when we were discussing the Bucks deal. So it's not enough just to pay a living wage. It's about making sure that those jobs are going to go to the people who are struggling the most in our community, the people who are struggling with employment. There's also a similar proposal that I support called the Ready to Work proposal that was introduced by the county board. And that said, let's make sure those who are struggling to find work the most are going to have access to job training and jobs so that they can get a road to steady employment. That's something that I believe in, and again, my opponent vetoed down. He cut the amount of funds that were going to that. So those are important. Also want to make sure that every family has access to a quality park. I think when a lot of people think of the county, they know we have one of the best park systems in the country, but it's fallen in hard times, right? We have the domes that are closed right now, because there hasn't been a concerted effort to long-term look at what we need to do to address deferred maintenance and make sure that every family has access to a quality park. We'll again renew a plan looking out over the next decade to make sure we're doing that, not just investing in some of the parks, but making sure that all of our neighbors have access to good parks. I think that's important for our kids. As somebody who was born here, who was raised here, who's lived here his whole life, and I'm raising my kids here. I think that's important. That legacy was given to us, right? And as much as we may not think of it this way, as much as we may not realize it, we're in charge right now. This is our generation's time. And if the legacy that was handed to us is not maintained, is not continued, that's on us, right? That's on each of us. And so when I saw the power concentrated in this office and continued to be concentrated in this office by the current executive, power over land sales, which we found out includes the airport, our zoo, our museum, and 43 of our parks, thousands of acres of our parks concentrated. I thought that was too much power, and we still haven't got an explanation. So I don't know if my opponent will finally explain it today after nearly a year of asking. But that was too much power, and instead what we've seen is more power concentrated, or more power requested over policy making, and over budgeting. No one man should have all that power. That's why I'm running, to make sure the power is back where it belongs, with you, with us. Because this is our legacy. This is our time. And it's not up to one person, it's up to all of us to make sure we continue that. So that's why when I stood out on my parents' driveway and announced my run for office, I said we're going to do a community listening session in each and every community. And we're going to do that every year, right? Kind of like Russ Feingold does. He can do it across the state. I think we can do it in the county. We can do that every year. It's about having a constant back and forth, a conversation, right? Not just where one person thinks the county should go, but where all of us want to go as a community. What are your priorities? And we've gotten in front of that also. We've already started to do community listening sessions. We've had 4 of them already, and we're going to be doing another one today that I'd like to invite you. I know that there's a limited time, which Dr. Malone is watching right now. So if you want to talk, we're going to have a community listening session. So you can come. You can come, sir, to this. We're going to be at Deneen Park from 2 to 4. So please come to that, because we are happy to hear you. We're also having an event at Garfield 502 this Tuesday night. Hope folks come by for that. And we're also going to have another event next Sunday at the MLK Center on Valete. And so I'd encourage folks to come to that. I'm fine with listening to folks, and I am a candidate who listens. That's how I've gotten to where I am without millions of dollars. That's how we won the primary without having that, while being outspent 20 to 1. And I'm happy to, but Dr. Malone, when we get to the questions, I'll have to do that.
Let me stop this right now. Excuse me, I would appreciate it if you would not yell out from the audience, because we're going to have questions and answers. And you will be able to come up, sir. Sir, and I'm a black woman, and so is your mom, and I know you respect me. There you go. Look, Lena can stick up for herself. She's sitting right here. Stop!
If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You get your turn. Yes, you can calm that food down. She's Lena calm that food down.
All right. Democracy can get a little messy sometimes, and we're all right with that. I am fine with hearing people out, and I'm happy to talk to you. But look, there's been a conversation about this, and I've seen it bubbling up a little bit about. I know, but I think the issue is to confront this directly. Is Senator Taylor and I have talked. We've had a conversation, and I apologized, and we've moved on, and we will move on. We'll find ways to work together, and I think that's an important thing to do. But let's be clear. As much as my opponent and some folks want to make this election about anything other than the failed direction we've been in the last 5 years, we need to remember where we are right now. There is a tendency, a disturbing tendency, to concentrate power into one office. There was the effort by this county executive to cut out the Democratic representation by going after the county board. There was an effort beyond that to be able to concentrate even more power. We've seen a slashing of services that our neighbors rely on, and at the same time, the public being cut out of the process. We have not just one, but 2 discrimination lawsuits against the current county executive, including a refusal to appoint a highly qualified individual to the Department on Aging. That's what this is about. It's about making sure we can turn the page as a community and start to move forward once again. And as much as we see millions of dollars talking about a dam, or talking about anything other than what's happening in our neighborhoods and the county moving in the wrong direction, you and I know what this election is about. It's a referendum on where our county is going, and it's time to take it back. It's time to move forward again, and it's a time to elect one of us who's going to be listening to all of us. That's why I'm running.
And thank you very much for staying right there on track. Thank you very much, and thank you, Ms. Taylor, for calming the situation down. Next, we have County Executive Chris Abele, okay, who is running for his second full term, right? Okay. And then a part of a term. Good morning.
Good morning. Here, I'm just getting my timer. Since we're all timing each other. Well, good morning, everybody. First, I'd love to address a few things. One thing that's great about community brainstorming is, as you quickly learn, absolutely nothing is off the table, nothing gets edited, and that's a good thing. We ask tough questions, we get good answers, we make noise, we give feedback, but that's part of what makes a community strong. First of all, before I jump into the question, which is primarily, what are we going to do going forward, how are we going to get there, and why should you think we're going to be able to get there, I want to address a few things that came up just recently. First of all, on the question of who supports Lena Taylor, well, I support Lena Taylor. I'm incredibly proud to support one of the more accomplished legislators that this city has ever had. As those of you who know Lena know, you will never run into Lena and not hear at least a dozen ideas. She wakes up in the morning and goes to sleep at night thinking about how she can make this city better, and she's relentless. Part of the reason I think we get along is I wake up every morning and I go to sleep every night not thinking about what next office I can run for. I don't think about making headlines. I don't think about defeating a party. I think about how can I help this county empower more people. The central part of the question to both Senator Larson and I was, what do you see as the opportunity going forward for the county? How are you going to get there? And the premise of that is getting things done. 5 years ago, when I ran, I said, after 30 years, I thought it was time we finally got around to reforming behavioral health division, which is one of the biggest divisions we had, and stop warehousing people. Not my idea, I don't get to claim credit for coming up with the idea. We've been told to do that for years and years and years, but it wasn't happening. And it didn't happen until we got there and we shut down long-term care and rehab, and we got every single individual who was in either of those facilities individualized, recovery-oriented, community-based care, better care with more dignity. When you talk about millions more going into the mental health complex for, relatively speaking, in long-term care, a small amount of people, and you say, well, why? Why does this matter? Why does it matter? It's a relatively small amount of people. It's people who, generally speaking, don't even vote. Because we, as a community, are better than that. We are better than being the last county in the United States that still provided a kind of treatment that nobody else was doing. And guess what? We don't do it anymore. I said I was going to reform BHD. We did. When I ran, I said I was going to put us in better fiscal shape. We've knocked hundreds of millions off the liability. And let's just be real clear about something. That was not happening before. It is now. Child support serves thousands more people than we ever did. We have an economic development department. We didn't have one before. And guess what? They've been busy. They've been involved catalyzing hundreds of millions of committed, financed projects that will lead to real jobs. We are ending, as you've just heard, chronic homelessness with permanent housing in 3 years. In 3 years, that's faster than any metro in America. 5 years ago, we couldn't have dreamed of doing it. And because we've paid down debt and we've worked hard and been disciplined, not only are we adding services, not only are bus fares 5 years in a row, they're not going up anymore, they're flat. We're not cutting routes anymore. In fact, we've added routes. We have over 200 new, more efficient buses. None of that was happening before. Parks, we've gained about 150 acres of parks. So if I'm trying to sell them, I'm doing a really bad job of it because we're gaining parkland. And by the way, I spent 20 years of my life, and long after I'm county exec, I'll still do it, supporting organizations like the Nature Conservancy, which preserve land, and I've been proud to do that. Going forward, here right now is the highest priority for me. We have an opportunity with the creation of the Office of African American Affairs to put another stake in the ground. We've talked, all of us, here, all around the city, all around the county. We've read articles the nation has talked about. We have some of the worst racial disparities in America. The reason nobody needs to be reminded is because you've all heard it so many times. But guess what? The numbers haven't changed. I've talked to so many people, and I've worked for so many years with so many great organizations that care, including a lot of people in this room, and they do great work. But for whatever reason, we're not coordinating enough because we're not moving the needle. That's got to change, and we have an opportunity to do something. So here's my vision. In 5 years, first, that office goes right next to the Office of County Executive, and here's why. Office of African American Affairs has a window on the decisions we make for the budgets of every single department in the county. Here's what we've already been doing. Every department and division has looked, what can we do? What do we do now that impacts the African American community and the neediest among them, and what can we do better? How can we reallocate services? How can we provide more? And we've already started doing that. What it's going to mean is that when we think about parks budget, we're putting parks that are in the inner city in 53206 on the top of the list. It means when we're thinking about our housing and where are we developing new housing, that's where we're focusing. Job programs like we've already created, Uplift Milwaukee, that's real money. We partnered with MAWIB at the city, job training, but not just anywhere, and job placement in 53206. We are going to make every budget decision focused on that. We're going to measure what we do, so it isn't anybody just up here saying, hey, we're making progress. They're saying, here's the number of housing or jobs right now. Here's where we want to get. Hold us accountable to it. We're going to have a grant writer. 5 years ago, as you all know, Scott Walker was not a big fan of federal money. Bizarrely, he said no to more millions of dollars of federal money that could have been taken advantage here than I can imagine. I have no problem with federal money, and we've been building back. We've been building back our ability to get grants. And guess what? We're getting good at it. Child support just got the single largest federal grant for the fatherhood program in the United States. And you know why we got it? Because we were one of three the previous years that got that grant. We just outperformed the other recipients of that grant. Federal agencies like that. And we're on the national radar in a good way too, because they know about that grant. They know we just won the White House Challenge and enrolled more people, a higher percentage increase of people with care than any metro of the top 20. We beat out states that did take the Medicaid expansion. Imagine how much more we could do if this state did. So here's the thing. Right now, we are the most resourced we have been in 5 years. Right now, I have the best team we've ever had. We know more about what we're doing, and what I have believed for a very long time on making a difference on our racial disparities, the missing element is a willingness to put a stake in the ground. So I'm here to tell you, I'm going to put a stake in the ground, and I want you to hold me accountable for it. We aren't just going to commit resources, we are going to make a difference. And it's not just going to be about the county, because no one group can do this alone. It's got to be the city, it's got to be the state, it's got to be the academic community, the business community, the faith community, and the nonprofit community. And here's the thing. For 20 years, I've been working with a lot of nonprofits and a lot of folks in the business community, and I know a lot of the CEOs of the largest companies. And not because I've come and bugged them for stuff, hey, give me this, give me that. It's because usually they've asked me to support something that they're supporting, and I've said yes. That point is, I've got chips, and I'm going to use them. And I'm going to say, this matters, you've got to step up. But the two things we need to do is we need to get everybody on board and have the most sustained, consistent, measured, and coordinated effort, because nobody can tell me we can't make a difference. And one final thing, when we think about planning for this, and we think about goal setting, here's what we don't do. We don't look at that incarceration number and say, hey, we're worst in the United States, how do we get out of the bottom 5? Screw that. we need to talk about what has to happen to have the lowest incarceration rate. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not right away, but that's gotta be a planning. Every day I will wake up thinking about this. Every night I go to bed sleeping about it. And again, I said it again. And I said it 5 years ago. I said it 3 years ago. I said it a year ago, and I'm saying it right now. I didn't run because I want to pursue a higher office. I didn't run because I want to, make headlines or beat some, team. I'll tell you right now, I'll work with anybody, whatever letter is behind their name. Everybody who we serve in public office deserves us to act like adults and find solutions and partners, not fights and enemies. You don't get anything done doing that. You look for places you can agree on, you set goals, and when we do that, we can do anything. So hold me accountable. I would be honored and privileged to have your vote in another 4 years, because again, I think our opportunity to make a difference has never been bigger. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Rose, no, you're not going to ask a question because I'm moderating. Because if I start these questions now, then the other candidates won't be able to make a presentation. And that's unfair because we're paying them all 6 figures. So, as you ladies and gentlemen, hey, I looked it up. As you ladies and gentlemen are going to let these panelists have a seat up front, I am going to call forward the comptroller candidates, Martin Matson and Johnny Thomas. The treasurer candidates, Spencer Coggs and Rick Kissell. Okay, give these people a nice seat. And Rick Kissell. Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Branch 31, Hannah Dugan. And is it Paul Rifelj? Rifelj. No J. It's got a gel on it. Rifelj. And Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Branch 45, Michelle Ackerman Havas. Somebody told me the H was silent.
It's not silent.
What?
I've been saying it for a year.
I know,
Havas.
but people keep correcting me.
No, it's Havas.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, you were right. Dr. Pam was right. Everybody knows
Hello. And Judge candidate Jean Kies. I got that one right. Jean, where are you? Okay, you all are up front. And the first candidate, let me see, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I am going to call, okay, I did Larson, Martin Matson. Oh, you're right here. And they have the same questions. Hello, I know you wanted to take over the forum and didn't want to know why we were paying these people. But this was a very difficult question to ask. This was a very difficult question to ask for the treasurer and comptroller because many of us don't know what they do. We do see Spencer's name on the tax bill. But our main goal is to provide information to the public. So, we were gonna just ask them to tell us why they were the most qualified, so everybody's gonna say, because I am. So, their question is, do you believe that some of the functions served by these respective positions are more important than others? And if so, please state why and describe some of those functions so we know what you do. Mr. Matson.
Good morning.
I want you in the mic.
So what does the comptroller do? I actually put a list together for you. It's on the back table back there. So if you leave today, you can get a list of what the comptroller actually does. There are 8 divisions in the comptroller's office. The position serves on over a dozen boards and commissions. But I want to give you my background.
Who are you?
My name is Marty Matson. Born and raised in the city of Milwaukee. I started school at the old St. Elizabeth's on 2nd and Burleigh, which is now Harambee Community School. In fact, I was in the first class of Harambee Community School before my parents moved out of the neighborhood. So I go back a long way. In fact, my mother grew up in the house 2 doors down here, which is currently boarded up, which I find to be very, very sad. I'm a graduate of Milwaukee Public High School, John Marshall on the Northwest Side. And I was one of the largest classes out of that. We were about 900 kids that year. Went to the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, but not right out of high school. I had a factory job way back when. Made really good money in a factory job, so I can appreciate people who are out of work and don't have high-paying jobs. But that's not what my office does. The short answer is, we maintain the city's financials and we provide objective financial information. And let me qualify that for you, because people think that I'm too quiet, that I take a step back too far, and that I don't voice my opinion. Well, I don't voice my opinion on purpose. If my office is to provide objective financial information, if I am to take a position on anything that the council or the administration is trying to decide, any number I produce now becomes suspect. Oh, well, he's only working for the mayor. Or, oh, he's only working for the council. He wants to push this agenda or that agenda. That's not what the office does. The integrity and the objectivity are paramount. And how good am I at doing that? I do not have a single person in City Hall who has given me an endorsement. That tells me I'm doing my job. I'm ticking everybody off. But you can count on a number from my office being accurate. Now, as everything the office does is important. So I took the question and I turned it around a little bit, and I said, what is the most highest risk item my office does, rather than what is the most important? And it has to be public debt. Now, public debt is something most people don't understand. We run about a $900 million program. We retire and incur anywhere between $70 and $80 million worth of debt every year. We also have a very complex debt program. I have an individual in my office, a public debt specialist, who is absolutely brilliant. In managing that individual, we have saved the city millions of dollars in interest expense by refinancing some of our older debt. We do that on a regular basis. But our debt program is complex, and it is the most high risk. Within the first 3 months in office, I realized I had a key man risk issue because my brilliant person was working by himself. There was no backup. So in the process of the city, it takes a while to change the budget and add a position and put in additional responsibilities. I now have backup for that position so that should he win the lottery or decide to go to the private sector, I'm not left holding the bag with a complex debt program that only one individual fully understands. Okay, so what does the rest of the office do? The other highest risk item in the office, and this is going to sound completely boring to you, but it's the production of the comprehensive annual financial report. And why is that high risk? Well, if we don't produce it on time, there is a $2 million a day fine, up to $20 million if we don't have that produced on time. And it has to pass an audit, an outside financial audit. No one has ever gone to the council saying, I didn't produce it on time. I came close my first year because of a number of issues in the transition to a new management team. And what is the biggest piece of the comprehensive annual financial report? Fixed assets. we do everything manually. One of the things that people who know me is once I start something, I like to finish it. One of the reasons why I'm running again is because of the number of projects and initiatives we took on in my first term that I want to see the completion that are taking longer than anticipated. But nothing I do is simple, and it is complex. And fixed assets are one of those things that needs to be automated a little more than the manual process we currently use. We had a changeover in staff, so the project got dragged out a little longer, and my goal is to produce our financials 30 days earlier than what we normally do. And I believe this is the first year we'll actually achieve that. It's a boring goal, isn't it? But it's worth $20 million. Those are the things people don't know about the office. Now, why am I qualified? Well, I could give you any number of reasons. I'm a good guy, I love my job, I have a great family, I have great support, I have a fantastic staff, which I do. But there are two things for success for this position. One is a hard skill and one is a soft skill. Another thing that people don't know, I've been with the city a little over 20 years. I started in the Department of Public Works. I used to sing, dance, and play numbers for DPW many years ago. And the comptroller's office at that time recognized what I could do. So when the new PeopleSoft system came in for financials, I was on the design team for General Ledger. And what people don't understand is I actually helped build the financial system the city uses today. So I understand it inside and out. I have the hard skills related to accounting and the financials to serve the community and be the person who produces those accurate and objective numbers. The soft skills I have gained with my experience working at the retirement system. I spent 13 years there working with a group of professionals. We implemented a comprehensive system there worth $25 million. It was a successful project, took over 3 years to do. Those soft skills are necessary in working with the management team in the comptroller's office. Why? Well, my predecessor had some very good key people that did everything for him, and he deferred to them continually. I am more hands-on. I like to get into the details, I like to know what's going on, and I like to coordinate the effort across the divisions in the office. The first year I was there, we did a organizational review, and I discovered that the city of Milwaukee is an outlier for what? Grants and aids. We have over 300 grant and aid programs, worth about $90 million a year. The next closest city in the country maybe has half that amount. So we do a very good job on grant and aids. And because we do so well with those and we audit them, we're actually at the top of the list for new grant and aid applications. So we do a very good job for you bringing outside money into the community to help us get our jobs done. And anyone in here who actually processes a grant and aid probably doesn't like me because we're so sticklers for accuracy and what grant and aid programs can do. And it looks like I'm out of time, so on April 5th, I would ask that you would continue with me as your comptroller. I believe I'm doing a fantastic job for you, and I am your tax watchdog.
Thank you. Thank you, Marty. And thank you, Ms. Love. Next, the person to speak is former county supervisor, Johnny Thomas.
Yep.
I asked him, I said, why do you want such an exciting job? And what did you say?
Working with a $1.5 billion budget, there was nothing boring about that. There was nothing boring about that. So, but before I start, no, good morning, family.
Stand over there for the smile. Yeah, that's good.
Before I start, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity to be in front of you, to serve you, and to be an advocate for you. Now, over 20 years ago, I wanted to be of service to you. And therefore, I joined the United States Army. Became a military police officer. Thank you. Became a military police officer at the 1st MP Battalion at Fort Meade, Maryland. I went to sniper training. I went to French commando training. I did drug suppression. And all of these things are contradictory to my accounting job. But the thing is, I knew I had a skill set and a yearning to represent you. So after the service, I came back, went to UW-Milwaukee and got my undergrad in accounting. Went to Cardinal Stretch and got my master's in business administration. Currently, I'm teaching accounting, finance, business, investment, tax, cost accounting, and some other courses at Cardinal Stretch and Concordia University because I love accounting. It is a very exciting job. Think about it. I get to tell you a story of how your money is actually working for you. But has anybody heard that story over the last 4 years? Does anybody know where your money is being spent? I just told you it was a $1.5 billion budget. If this brother owes me $5, I know where he lives. But $1.5 billion. How do you know where we're getting a return on that investment? Where is that money being used to advance our future? That's the question that we should be asking. That's what that position should be telling you. You should be well aware and educated on how your money is being spent. So now you're a better advocate when you go to your county supervisor, when you go to your alderman, when you go to the mayor, when you go to the county executive. You can tell them, you know what, I want my money invested here. If we're going to create jobs, if we're going to put more money back in the neighborhoods, we can't do that if we're investing in these old programs that we've been doing for the past 20 years, which haven't given us a return on our investment. It's a very simple question. This isn't complicated. This is brainstorming. But you need someone. You need an advocate, someone who's going to be there and that comes back to you and tells you, this is what we've done with your money this year. This is what we're going to do with your money next year. This is what you can expect to see in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. Without that plan, people, we are just drifting in the wind. And we see the trouble that we have out on our streets. You know, we can talk about accomplishments this year, but how do we grow those accomplishments or build on them next year? That's why this is so exciting. This is why I want to serve you. I know what my why is. I know my why when I signed up for the Army, and I know my why today. My why has been, I'm trying not to get any back feed. Is that good? Am I okay, family? Okay. So my why, when I wake up in the morning, I see my wife. When I walk across the hall, I see my youngest son. When I walk down the hall, I see my oldest son. And I know that our tax dollars can be used a little bit more efficiently to provide a better future for them, for the neighbor across the street, for your families. But we need to know how that money is being used today. I'm not asking for any more money. I'm just saying use what we've got and make sure that it's working efficiently for you. Now, my family, we've had to cut down. We've had to pinch some pennies. So we've had to make some decisions. It's the same thing in the comptroller's office, just on a bigger scale. But don't let the zeros fool you, because we know that a dollar spent here means that we're not spending a dollar over there. Let's just keep it simple. I tell my students all the time, what is the value you're going to give your clients when you work for them? What is the value you're going to give to your employers? But as your comptroller, I'm going to tell you that I will be there. I will tell you, I will educate you on how those tax dollars are being spent. I will be independent. Now, I have over 30 elected officials and prior elected officials who have endorsed me. I have local agencies and union groups who have endorsed me. Why? Because they see the value in my heart and the intensity in the work that I'm going to put into this position. I'm not there to act as if because you don't like me, I'm doing a good job. There may be another issue going on. But I can tell you that when I step before you, you'll be able to reach out, touch your comptroller, ask him a question, and I will articulate to you the value of your money. So on April 5th, with your prayers and your vote, I will become your next City of Milwaukee comptroller. Thank you, family.
I got it now with the money. Hi, I remember you were running for mayor. Oh, I got it. I got the money. So I'm going either or. Just don't let Mr. Coggs collect anymore because you don't know how much I paid. So it's time for Mr. Kissell, either or, to come to the mic, and they have the same question, and he is running for treasurer, right?
That's right.
Okay. And here's the mic.
All right, if I can get something up here and not slide around. Thank you. My name is Rick Kissell. I am a socialist. I come out of the Milwaukee socialist tradition. Became active in politics after Frank Zeidler spoke in my high school class. And since then, I've been pretty continuously active in peace and social justice issues. I'm running for city treasurer because I think Milwaukee needs a left. I think the country needs a left, but Milwaukee definitely needs to return to the sort of movement that we had as recently as the 1940s, where there were 4 political parties represented in the state legislature. And as you probably know, from 1910 to 1960, the city of Milwaukee had one of 3 socialist mayors. Since in my lifetime, I have watched basically the entire political spectrum move to the right. As some comic put it, the Democratic Party has moved to the right and the Republican Party has moved into an insane asylum. It is, I don't know about you folks, but as I watch politics, it really turns my stomach, and especially now that we have a Supreme Court that's about 150 years behind the American people. In 2008, President Obama was elected in the wake of the greatest economic crisis since the 1930s, caused by a wave of corporate crime that was unprecedented. Now think about this. Trillions of dollars in equity was lost. Hundreds of thousands of Americans lost their homes. How many people are sitting behind bars for that right now? To the best of my knowledge, the answer is 0. The only person that I know of that's doing time is Bernie Madoff, and he didn't rob the typical American, he robbed the 1%. What does that tell you about justice in America? That's why I think we need to rebuild the left in this country. I believe a city treasurer should be a watchdog, and as an example, the Public Policy Forum put out some years ago a report on the city's finances that pointed out that in the 1990s, in 1 decade, the city's per capita debt increased. Do you know what the percentage increase was? Now we're talking about 1 decade, which is not a particularly long period in the history of the city of Milwaukee. You know what the percentage increase was per capita debt? 97%. Okay, eventually we could end up like Detroit or Flint, Michigan, if this is not dealt with. And that is the sort of thing that if we'd had a city treasurer at that time who was actually awake, we could have been informed of this instead of finding out about it decades later. So I bring an activist perspective to the city treasurer's office, and I think that we need to have someone there who's not a career politician, and it shouldn't be, that office should not be used as a rest home for career politicians, okay, who wish to increase their pension and their salary. Analyze it as a career move. The treasurer at that point was a former state senator, who shall remain nameless. Analyze it as a career move. Going from the state senate to the city treasurer's office, 2 things happen. 1, you lose 99% of your political power. 2, your salary goes up. Analyze it as a career move, and it is a very cynical move. That's why I think that we need, again, to have the office not be used as a rest home for career politicians. I support a pay-as-you-go policy, which was championed by the socialist mayors of Milwaukee, that instead of getting loans, which is what was constantly happening before the socialists took over, that the city should raise the tax money first and then build whatever needs to be built. Getting out loans solves nothing, and over the long run puts the city of Milwaukee's financial condition in real jeopardy. I also support the concept of a public bank, which was originally championed by Charlie Whitnall, the first socialist city treasurer. He envisioned the idea of self-banking, which was done in North Dakota at the state level in around 1917 or so. Since that time, North Dakota has used the profits from its state bank to create college scholarships for its young people to encourage them to stay in the state. We could be doing something along those lines. if we had a legislature that was in the 21st century and not the 19th, and a governor, of course. I also support the idea of having the public school choice program listed on a separate line on this combined property tax bill and not under Milwaukee Public Schools. I think as a matter of basic financial honesty, that should have been done a long time ago. I think that now that we have we've got a new city treasurer, but not a new change in policies. And if I were city treasurer, I would speak out whenever there's something happens that impacts negatively the finances of the city of Milwaukee. For example, whether it was enacted in Milwaukee, Madison, or Washington, I think that we should have our local leaders should have been leading the fight against things like NAFTA, the World Trade Organization, and now the Trade Policy Pact of the Pacific. Now think about this: who is it that signed NAFTA into law? Which president did that? And who guided it through Congress? Do you remember that? That's a harder question. It was an then obscure Illinois congressman, a Democrat. Remember his name? Rahm Emanuel. Okay? That's another example of why I think Milwaukee and America need to build a left. Because between the Democrats and Republicans, we are in trouble. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, and thank you so much, sir. The next speaker will be the Milwaukee City Treasurer, Spencer Coggs, but I did pay that money on the 30th. And it was very difficult for me to fit the number in writing on the check. But I still like you, so you ladies and gentlemen, City Treasurer Spencer Coggs.
Well, we had everybody who came up here, and they were pretty civil to each other. Then all of a sudden, my opponent gets up and said, "We don't want this to be a rest home for state senators." I guess the gloves are off, folks. But there is a question that people have, in a serious way. And that is, why would me, a state senator, come back to the city? It's because I love this city, okay? I spent 20 years as a state rep. I spent 10 years as a state senator. People said, and it was a compliment that paid to me, they said, "Spencer, we really miss you in Madison," Lena Taylor said. And simply, I just said, well, I did 20 in the lower house. I did 10 in the upper house. If you're in the military, they make you do 20 years. I did 30. I think I did my job, folks. But I wanted to come back, and I wanted to use that 30 years of experience to mentor new politicians, okay? We have a young cadre politicians in the city council, and we're gonna have 2 new ones there. What better person to mentor these new politicians than someone who has spent 30 years kicking butt and taking names, okay? And I can tell you about my Senate thing, but they want to know about the functions of a city treasurer. Or whatever. I love that. Listen, we have a number of functions, and yes, we do short-term investment, but you know what everybody wants to talk about, and that is we collect taxes, and we do it efficiently, okay? We collect 98 cents of every dollar that is levied, okay? So we're efficient. But there's 2 ways to collect taxes. One is fairly, and one is not so fairly. I choose fairly, okay? You can pay now via mail, most people do. You can pay electronically, and you can pay in person. And I have been, like many of you, I have gone during that Christmas holiday, and I fought the traffic downtown. I fought people to get that closest parking space. Then I get in City Hall, and there's this long, super long line. that you have to be in, and oftentimes it takes 20 minutes, half hour to pay your taxes. And like Dr. Pam, nobody likes to pay taxes, okay? But then to have to struggle through the whole thing and make it very, very difficult makes absolutely no sense at all. So I got in office in my first year. I see this long line from my office through the entire rotunda, at least 80 people. And I said, this makes absolutely no sense. Went to US Bank, and I said, would you be an outlet for us so we don't have all this bad traffic and the rest? We convinced US Bank that has 13 bank branches in the city, okay, to partner with us. So now you can pay at the bank. And ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the next time, the first thing I did was go to the bank, pull into the parking spot. There was no traffic. Went into the bank. There were 3 people ahead of me, and all the tellers were there, so it didn't take but a couple of minutes. I then paid my taxes, went back to my car. It took 5 minutes, okay? So pay at the bank is now installed, and we don't have those long lines in City Hall anymore, okay? I saw people who, as I walked into the office, started thanking me. Who thanks the tax collector, okay? I was like a little junior rock star for a couple of days. Okay? Now, what also is fair is increasing people's knowledge, especially their financial literacy. Okay? There are significant numbers of people in this city who don't understand their tax bill, especially when the tax bill talks about special charges. Now, special charges are when you didn't cut your grass and the city cut it for you. They send you a bill. That's a special charge. If you didn't plow your snow and the city had to plow it for you, that's a special charge. If you didn't pay your water bill throughout the entire year, they put it on your tax bill. That's a special charge. And one of the weirdest special charges is what they call reinspection fees. Okay, you get a building code violation and you don't fix it, they come back out and reinspect it, they charge you money. The next month, they come out again, they charge you more money. Each time they reinspect, that fee goes up and it's compounded, okay? Now, I've had people come to me and say, listen, I'll pay my taxes, but I ain't paying that, whatever the special charge is. The problem is that people don't understand when they come and see me in December and they haven't paid it throughout the year, by that time, it's real taxes. Okay, so they have to pay it. But the question becomes, worst case scenario, say you have a modest little house and your taxes for the year are only $1,500. Okay? If you have, and this is a real case, I've seen people who've had special charges of $1,700 on their taxes. Okay, more than their taxes itself. Okay? Worst case scenario, the people who have this modest house want to pay on our 10-month interest-free installment plan. Okay, that's a great deal. Okay, but when I first came to the city, you couldn't get on the 10-month interest-free installment plan if you had special charges. You had to pay the whole special charges first. So check it out. You had to pay $1,700 to get on the installment plan to pay $1,500. If you couldn't pay the $1,500 on time, you know you couldn't pay that $1,700. It made absolutely no sense. I went to the Common Council. I explained it to them. They said, hey, this makes absolutely no sense. And so we had an ordinance that went through the Common Council quick, fast, and in a hurry. Okay? So now, when we explain it to people, you can combine your special charges and your taxes and pay each month a little at a time. Amen. The city still gets its money. The people can afford to pay, and people stay in their homes. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta tell you, we had a number of people who went delinquent, okay? Delinquency leads to foreclosure, okay? Since we've instituted this plan, 700 households have kept on time, not gone delinquent, and not gone into foreclosure. That deserves a round of applause. I'm getting that. I got 1 minute. Okay. So the reason I could do that is because I was looking at old problems with new eyes, new vision. Excuse me, and that's what we need. Okay, I was an advocate as a state rep. I was an advocate as a state senator. I'm an advocate now as your treasurer. I want to go back for a second term to find out where the disconnect came with people. So, because the city keeps telling me, oh, no, we tell people about these special charges, the people who come to me personally. They say, they told me nothing. I want to find out who's lying and who's telling the truth, okay? So, on April 5th, I would like for you to send me back to the city treasurer's office so I can find a way to solve this special charges problem and keep people, because fair is fair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I don't know about you all. Let me just say, for those of you who are standing, there are a few seats available up here. For those of you who are down here, and there's quite a few people, there are some seats available up here. And I will say, though, I love standing in those lines and illegally parking because I don't escrow. So in very shortly, you'll be able to ask your questions, and I know they're going to be quite exciting. But we're going to do these judges' races, and first, because they make a difference, a big difference, and I think a lot of young people don't even know that. And those of us who try to stay out of court, we know that. So I am going to start with Hannah Dugan, and then Paul's going to whisper how to pronounce it without the J, so I'll get it right this time. Rifelj. Can I put a G on it? Come on, Hannah. Miss Dugan. I didn't read the question.
Okay.
She already knows the question, but we want to know, what role do the courts play in law enforcement and/or public safety?
Okay. Good morning, Community Brainstorming. As many times as I've been here, this is the first time I've actually spoken to you, so I'm happy to do that. My name is Hannah Dugan, and I'm running for Branch 31 of the Milwaukee Circuit Court. I have been working for justice here in Milwaukee County for 3 decades. I've been preparing myself for this job for 3 decades. And I say that by telling you that I've been an active litigator on behalf of low-income people in Milwaukee County at legal action and legal aid in a variety of substance areas of law. I've been a decision maker on behalf of the citizens of the state of Wisconsin and also Milwaukee County and the city of Milwaukee, as the chair of the Judicial Commission, judging judges statewide, as the vice chair of the Milwaukee County Ethics Board during the pension scandal, and as a member of the City Ethics Board, and finally as an attorney discipline referee. So I work for the Supreme Court. I'm a Supreme Court referee, but it's for attorney discipline. It's not for the court. I've also been an active member of many boards in Milwaukee County, working in civic engagement. And I think that's where it really goes to the question that's been posed to us today about the role of the judge and the role of the courts with respect to law enforcement and civic engagement, I think, is really the question. I'll give you an example. I've been on Benedict Center Board, for instance, for 10 years, working on alternatives to incarceration. Many of the successful programs, the Kip McNally, when she headed it up, are still in existence today and were predecessor for many of the successful alternative programs that are being pursued today. We had judges involved in some of those alternative programs, and that's how I see the role of the judge and the courts in the community and in law enforcement. Judges sit behind the bench, cases come to them. They have to be fair and impartial. You have to have background and experience of knowing what's going on in the community, what's going on in Milwaukee County, and I have that for 3 decades working in the trenches, in the courtrooms. But judges need to move beyond the bench. Right? They need to be engaged. So for example, Carl Ashley and I were on the Supreme Court Advisory Committee. He was the chair and I was the vice chair of the Alternatives to Incarceration at the Supreme Court level. Judges needed to be there in order to influence the policies that trickle down, the protocols that trickle down. So from that committee, what happened is the creation of problem-solving courts such as the mental health courts and the drug treatment courts. Those are the types of things that judges have to be engaged in order to understand how the decisions, the sentences, the alternatives can be worked through in order to have better justice come out of our system, to have fair justice and impartial justice and contemporary justice with what's happening in the community and how to protect the community, first of all, but also how to fairly hold people accountable. To make sure that the sentences that are imposed in criminal matters are sentences that are appropriate, but also avoid recidivism. You know, that we're dealing with, thank you, that we're dealing with people who are being criminalized when their circumstances really aren't criminal circumstances. And I'm talking specifically about our crisis with having people with mental health conditions in our jails instead of being appropriately treated. When I was at the Legal Aid Society and I was in charge of designing programs, in charge of moving forward, we made the choice that we were going to bring the lawsuit that said the county needed to provide mental health services to people in jails and not just criminalize people. We needed to have alternatives. We needed to have, and we worked with judges on those issues. That's where the role of the court comes in law enforcement and appropriate accountability. And I'll give you that example. I'll give you the example from Benedict Center, harm reduction program, day reporting center. What else did we do, Kit? I can't remember all the stuff we did. We did a lot of things. Even trying to keep the library in the jail so that people actually had a library in the jail. We had to fight for that. I mean, and we had judges on our side with that too. And the municipal court judges, specifically Jim Gramling, was on our side for that. So I give you those couple examples to you to suggest that. We need people who sit behind the bench, have been in the community, working in the community, understand the issues, but then go beyond the bench and say, for instance, like a Joe Donald, he sits behind the bench, but then he goes beyond the bench and starts a drug treatment court. Or a Jim Gramling that sits behind the bench and then goes beyond the bench and creates community service options. That's another part of the role I'll talk about in terms of law prevention. And that is, I taught the Municipal Ordinance Defense Clinic at Marquette Law School for a number of years. And what I told my students is, we're going in there and we're teaching you trial practice through the municipal courts, okay? What we're really teaching you is, we cannot create records. Your job as an advocate is to not to create the record. Because once you create a record, it creates a record, and then somebody's out there, unable. Then somebody ends up being sentenced, comes back to our community and is unable to get employed because they got a life sentence of unemployment because of their record. The most important thing is to not create records. And if there are records, we need the court system to be engaged in making sure that we get better results with respect to expunging records, and clemency and other types of things. We don't have those right now. We need to encourage judges and everybody, but we need to encourage judges to be at places like this, listening. To be at MICA, to be at Interfaith, listening, so they understand when they are behind the bench, when they need to go out beyond the bench. Okay. May I just finish one thing? Okay. I just want to finish up by saying I didn't really get to talk a whole lot about my background, but I did want to say that I'm very privileged to be on the ballot. I'm privileged to be endorsed by a number of people, including Ask Me and AFT and a number of elected officials. But I'm also really privileged to be endorsed by people you all know. People in this room, like Mandela, like Gary Goike, like Jim Carpenter, like, who else is here? Jonathan Brostoff, people you know. Fred Kessler, thanks for raising your hand. Michelle Goldstein, people you know because they care to be here. They are passionate about our legal system, and I'm passionate about our legal system. I'm asking you to, I'm asking the citizens of Milwaukee County to appoint me to this office one vote at a time, instead of having one person appoint your judges. Thank you.
Okay, I can see during the Q&A in a few minutes going to be on Judge Paul Rifelj.
You got it. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me here today. I always tell the attorneys who appear in front of me to know their audience and know when to be brief, and I think now is probably one of those times. We've been here for quite some time. I want to thank you all again. This is an important election. The quality of the judges that we have in Milwaukee County is an incredibly important thing. I have had a career dedicated to trial work and trial work in the service of the most vulnerable in our society. I've spent over a decade in the public defender's office as a trial lawyer. I have spent my entire career serving those who need indigent defense, people who are accused of crimes and cannot afford a lawyer, and serving them with remarkably high levels of representation. I'm the only judge in Milwaukee County. There are 47 branches in Milwaukee County. I am the only judge in the county to come directly from the public defender's office. It is very common for different types of attorneys to come in. It is exceptionally rare for public defenders to go straight from that office into the judiciary. One of the issues, one of the hot topics that has come up in the other forums that we have faced is the issue of mass incarceration in Milwaukee County and in the city of Milwaukee. I have spent my entire career trying to avoid having my clients go to prison. I have spent my entire career making sure that the rights of my clients were not trampled on. I have spent my entire career making sure that the humanity of my clients, which is often overlooked in a system where things are supposed to run on schedule, where things are supposed to run on time, where taking the time to demonstrate humanity is seen as an inconvenience. I've spent my career slowing things down and making sure that whoever it was that was judging my client, whether it's a jury, whether it's a judge, that they understood and appreciated my client's humanity at the time. This is a rare situation, thank you. This is a rare situation to actually have and choose a candidate with a wide range of bipartisan support. I have the endorsement of 35 Milwaukee County judges, 36 if I get to count myself, I suppose. John Chisholm, the District Attorney of Milwaukee County, as well as the Wisconsin State Public Defender. The Milwaukee Area Labor Council endorsed me in January of this year as well. And I'll tell you, among the most proud endorsements that I have are those from the public defenders and the district attorneys alike, who appear in front of me on a daily basis, who know that I am tough, but that I am fair, that I treat people well. I have a mantra that no matter what you do on the bench, you be kind, for everyone you know is fighting a hard battle. I'll get to the role of public safety for the judiciary. First of all, public safety is a primary factor when you're dealing with court processes. It's along with the nature of the offense and the character of the offendant, you have to keep the community safe. But judges have to be careful because we are umpires and we are supposed to call balls and strikes and be fair. You cannot be a total member of the team when it comes to public protection or law enforcement because you are called at times to judge members of law enforcement as well in your courtroom. I think it's important, as does Hannah, that judges reach out. I think you have to have judges that you know are going to care about the issues that confront our community. If I had served as a public defender for 3 weeks, if it was something that I did as an internship, then you could say he's not really dedicated to that cause. He's not dedicated to treatment over incarceration. There are drawbacks of incarceration that make the community less safe at times. I was a public defender for over a decade. I have done indigent defense for my entire career, and I'm a judge that you know will be dedicated to keeping people safe, to keeping families together when possible. I hope to be a judge that Milwaukee County can be proud of. Thank you all for being here, and I hope for your support in April. Thank you all.
Thank you. We only have one more set. Rose, you're not going to answer for. And let me just say this now. Nobody's reading a sheet of paper. It's not happening. Okay? So we have 2 more candidates for judge, and thank both of you. And I'm going to get this one right. I'm going to call on Michelle Havas. Thank you very much. Judge Michelle Havas. And then after that, I'm going to call on Kies. See, I know that. You know I can get that one.
Right, right.
I was still right.
You're right. You were right, yes.
Okay.
Good morning. All right, I'm starting my timer so I don't make Dr. Pam mad. Thank you so very much for having me here this morning. This is one of my favorite days of every month to come to brainstorming. I've been coming for over a year, and I think there are so many engaging issues, and I love the people that I see over and over. So I appreciate the opportunity to come. The question that we were provided with was, what do we see as judges as the role of the courts and judges for law enforcement and public safety? I think that's really important, and I can tell you what I've seen in the almost 7 months that I've been on the bench. I think that it's important for courts and judges to act in a way that is both proactive and reactive. And I'm going to take the second one first. From a reactive perspective, when cases come before us, we have to hold people accountable. And by that, I don't just mean the defendants who are charged. We have to hold law enforcement accountable as well, and make sure that if there is a search done that is questionable, it doesn't pass muster in our case. If there is a question of questionable practices that went on, of targeting, of profiling, of things like that, that it's not going to pass muster in our case. Now, in addition to that, we have to hold the offenders accountable. Now, I've spent most of my career in public service, the majority of it. I started out as a legal secretary at the DA's office. I worked into a role as a probation and parole agent, and I worked on 72nd and Capitol in a drug-affected population. Those were the cases I was dealing with. And I was actually living in the city. I lived in the city for 10 years. So I've seen the issues, I've seen the problems, and I know what's happening. Those people who were on my probation caseload were held accountable fairly. And it's funny because you get the opportunity sometimes when you do have to revoke somebody for a violation. They'll come back out, and they'll come back out onto your caseload. And they had fought me tooth and nail when they were being revoked. And then they'd come out, and I'd kind of get a shrug of, well, yeah, you had to do what you had to do, and I'm done, and let's start fresh. And that's how my perspective is, that we move forward, and we move forward in a positive way. You can't change who you are, you can't change your past, but you absolutely can change your future. And I want to be an instrument of that change. What I did after I went to college at night while I was a probation agent, I went to law school and I joined a big firm. It was good work, it was honest work, but it was not my passion. So I went back to the DA's office and I worked for 12 years out at Children's Court. Now, nobody knows about much of what I did there because it was very confidential. All those cases are confidential and they are closed hearings. But I can tell you that during those 12 years, I found intense personal satisfaction to be able to help kids who couldn't really speak for themselves. They had people who would represent them, but I was doing what was best for them. And working with people, if they could be reunited with their biological families, that was great. If they could not, and they needed permanence to start healing from the trauma that we know affects them so much, I was able to do that. So how do we look at that in courts? Well, I talked to you about the reactive piece of coming in and holding people accountable. But what is the proactive piece? The proactive piece is to let people know that the courts are theirs. But they shouldn't just see us when they're in front of us on a case. They should see us out in the community. They should see us here, as you have seen me. You should see us painting houses for Habitat for Humanity and working with things in the community, working with people in the community. I had the opportunity and privilege, I will say, to model, which was never an aspiration of mine, in a community walk, a fashion show to eradicate human trafficking last weekend. The energy in that room, the community coming out to do that, was incredible, and I was thrilled to be able to take part. Chris Abele danced up a storm. You know, we're people. We're part of the community. I've lived here my entire life, and I enjoy it. It is what I do, and it is what I am happy to do to make sure that people see that judges are people too, and we're part of your community. We are part of what we want to do in the courtroom as well as out of the courtroom. The issues that I saw from the time I joined the DA's office as a secretary, through probation, and through my time at Children's Court are the same issues that I'm seeing now. They're dressed up a little differently. It was crack back in the 90s. Now heroin is a horrible scourge, and it's just awful. We need to do something about that. We need to start the conversation. We need to find out. I don't know exactly everything that I can do, but I'm willing to listen and I'm willing to learn. And I think that it's important that I can get out and do things along the lines of finding out why are prescription pills so easy to get a hold of? How is that trickling down? What is going on with heroin? What's going on? The Milwaukee County Medical Examiner spoke at an event I was at recently and said that 25% of the autopsies they did last year was overdoses. That's outrageous. We need to find out what's going on there. We need to find out what our educational issues are. Why are things going on in the schools where people are not able to get their education? So they're making the negative choices to drop out of school, to not follow up on their education. I think it's really important. I have children and I do more homework now with my 9 and 11-year-old than I did when I was 9 or 11. But they do their own homework, but when it comes home, you have to work with them. You have to make sure that they're doing. I can guarantee I'm not doing anybody's math for them. But you have to work with them because they bring it home every night. The 2 questions when I grew up was, do you have homework and did you do it? It's much more involved now, but we may have a disconnect between the level of involvement. If I didn't do that with my kids, would they choose to do that or on their own, or would they watch television? They're my kids. They would probably watch television. But you know, it's important that they follow through and we find out about education and about what is necessary to make sure that that is happening. I don't know what's going on with employment, but I absolutely, if someone has to serve a sentence, whether it's an incarceration sentence that they get from me or a probationary sentence, I want them to finish that sentence better equipped than when they got it. I want them to have some job training. I want them to have their GED, their high school diploma, whatever it is. I'm incredibly fortunate. I went through school at night paying for it myself, but I had a supportive family. Not everyone has that. But once you get that GED or your diploma or your degree or whatever it is, no one can ever take that away from you. I want to recognize those positives when they come into my court. And that's how I run my court. I'm a positive person. I've run a positive campaign and I do positive work. That is what I have done in the community for all of these years, and that's what I will continue to do, because that's what I want to do. You can't expect anybody to rise up if you're trying to hold them down. And I don't hold anybody down. When they come through my court, they are given a respectful greeting by name. They are treated with respect. They are able to be heard. And I hear from the community. My perspective has changed. When you're an advocate, which I was for many years, you listen to, you argue your case. You have your client's position, whatever that is, and you argue it, and you defend it zealously, and that's what people do. But now that my perspective has changed, I'm up on the bench, and as I look out, I see law enforcement, I see victims, I see the DAs, I see the defendants, I see the defendants' families, I see the defense attorneys, and I see the community just sitting in my courtroom. I've invited you many, many times, and I continue to do so. Please come watch me in action. I was appointed by Scott Walker because just like when a vacancy came up on the United States Supreme Court and Barack Obama nominated Merrick Garland, that's what Scott Walker did. He put me into that spot because that's how it works. Now I'm standing for election, and that's what I'm doing. I'm endorsed by caveat by the fact that Scott Walker appointed me, but I'm also endorsed by John Chisholm and Mike McCann. Those two people have watched my work. Those were my bosses for all those years that I worked with them. I have a variety of people who have supported me. It crosses the bipartisan lines and all that sort of thing. But what's important to me is these are people who know my work, and they've had the opportunity to see me be your judge for 7 months. I want to be able to continue my career of public service, and I appreciate your support, the ability to speak here, and I hope I can count on your support in April. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. And I'm going to say last and definitely not least. And now, while I did give people 10 minutes, but it took a long time to feed people because there were so many people here, I'm going to call Gene Kies forward. But if you can get that point across in less than 10 minutes, we do have Q&A following that. So following Attorney Kies' presentation, I'm going to ask County Executive Abele to sit in this hot seat. I'm going to ask Chris Larson, and I'm going to ask, where are my Supreme Court candidates? I'm going to ask Rebecca Bradley, and where are you? Oh, you got a seat, huh? And I'm going to ask Judge Kloppenburg to come forward, because you can ask questions of any of these people, but there will be one question. There will not be a half-page statement. Okay, because I'll be holding the mic again. Welcome, Gene.
So glad to be here. Good morning, community brainstorming. I'm Gene Kies, and thank you for waiting around and watching for my presentation. I'm really grateful to all of you for being here and listening to the issues. It's really important. So the question for the judicial candidates was, what role do the courts play in law enforcement? We have a system of checks and balances in our government, and that is that when the legislature makes a law, we have to interpret it as the courts, and we have to carry out the role of the law, and then obviously the executive branch has its role. Having said that, in my estimation, many of the people in this room are concerned about what do we do about male incarceration in this community. And the fact of the matter is people that commit violence have to be locked up. However, each case has to be looked at individually, and each case has to be looked at independently with an eye toward justice. That means looking at the gravity of the offense that was committed, and that means looking at the characteristics of the individual. You know, we need to look at the positives of a person as well as maybe something that bad happened in the past. And then we also have to deal with the protection of the community. But all of those factors require a judge to use discretion. And I'm a person with my 25 years of experience as a lawyer who's represented a vast community of people who knows how to apply discretion and look for good. Moreover, we need to look outside in our community and reach out as judges. We need to look at the issues that plague our community. We need to look at the things that we can do better. And we need to work together. We need to address issues of racism. We need to address issues of poverty. We need to get rid of eviction problems that we have in this community. We need to work on driver's license restoration. We need to make sure that people aren't locked up when they don't need to be locked up. We need to give people hope. That's all there is to it, brainstorming. So having said that, I think that's my short answer to a very long discussion that we could have to that question, Dr. Pam. Thank you for that opportunity. I wanted to talk to you about who is Jean Kies. Kies is my last name, K-I-E-S, and I think that signifies what I stand for. K is in kindness, in giving people dignity, respect, and giving them justice, and looking for fairness under the law. That's paramount, and that's what a judge has to do. We have had all sorts of problems, but we're working as a system, we're getting better. I would like to see the courts create a human trafficking court to address issues that our babies need. We need to make sure that they're protected from predators. I'd also like to see that we do more in the area of mental health. And the reason why, if we did more in the area of mental health, we probably wouldn't be sitting here today knowing that poor Dontre Hamilton passed away. If he had been treated, he wouldn't be out there in the community at the mercy of an officer. So having said that, we need to work forward. We also need to make sure that partisan politics don't step into our judiciary. I, in my last name, K-I, stands for integrity, and it stands for independence. My opponent has said to you she's endorsed by Scott Walker, she's endorsed by Mark Belling. If you want to walk around and say that, great. Amen. But having said that, I'm endorsed by neutral people, people from a broad spectrum across the board. I'm grateful here. I'm endorsed by the great Val Phillips. She's a force to be reckoned with. She has done good for our community. I'm endorsed by the Senator Lena Taylor over here. I'm endorsed by Mandela Barnes. I'm endorsed by Jonathan Brostroff, State Senator Chris Larson, all sorts of wonderful people. I have support of sitting judges. In fact, this week it's really interesting because I garnered the support of a sitting judge who I think is really important in this community, that being Joe Donald. Joe Donald has brought forward the drug treatment court, and I think that's an imperative program that we need more of in Milwaukee County. What happened to bring across that endorsement? Well, I've been campaigning with him for months, but the fact of the matter is my opponent sent out literature. She didn't have permission to use his likeness in this literature. When he called me and he said, Jean, I saw this literature, put me on board, because we need people who have integrity and who are independent, and who also ask permission before they use a person's likeness. I am also a person who's independent. I have sitting judges. This week I added Judge Glenn Yamahiro to my list of supporters. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to those folks who stand behind me. I have attorneys, a long list of attorneys. I have Mr. Spencer Coggs on my list. I am grateful. I also have the labor unions. I'm endorsed by the Milwaukee Area Labor Council, SEIU, AFSCME, the Iron Workers, AFT, you name it, I'm labor's girl. That's how this works. In addition, and most importantly, I am endorsed by real people. And that's what's so awesome about this whole process of becoming a candidate and ultimately becoming a judge. Because I'm proud of the fact that real people in this community have shaken my hand and taken the time to talk to me about my message. So I want you to know that that's the last of my letters. S is for support of the community. And I'm asking that on April 5th that you get out and think about those 4 letters, K-I-E-S. Jean Marie Kies, that's how my name appears on the ballot. And I ask that you vote Jean Marie Kies, because we need to bring back justice, fairness, equality, and respect to our courts. Thank you.
Gee. Oh yeah, you're gonna line up to the left. Not from the audience. Okay, you can direct questions towards one person or everybody, but we can stay here a while, but they will be questions, they will be brief. But Chris and Chris, I have to ask you, because I have to vote too, do you intend to spend all 4 years in office? That's very important to me. You do. You do, if elected. Okay. Okay, I mean this office, county exec. Okay, just checking. Good morning, could you step forward and give your name and ask your question? It's a half-page, Rose.
My name is Ms. Rose. This question is for Chris and Chris. Because personally, I see no difference between the two of you, because to me, their skin is too thin, and you're using the feelings regardless of how the outcomes may affect the black community. So therefore, my question to both of you is, why should I vote for either one of you?
Okay, come on.
Thank you, Ms. Rose. I think one of the big things that separates us is it's a difference between consolidating power versus empowerment. And what I've done with my career is trying to empower, trying to listen, trying to make sure it's not just one person, but we're also helping other people to get the pathway to grassroots activism, to how to make sure that you're heard. We did a program called DEM Team. It's about making sure that people, not just young people, but all ages, understand politics, kind of decode it, and understand the power structures around us. We've gone through 7 of them now, and some of the folks who've gone through that training include, Supervisor Supreme Moore Omakunde, Representative Mandela Barnes, include Jose Perez, who's an alderman, and many others, over 24 other people who've gotten elected. And that just kind of shows about and I did that started that when I was a county supervisor. And it's about making sure that folks are empowered and folks are at the table. I could tell you too about the Office of African American Affairs. This is one where I think it's important to have not just the county executive have oversight over this. I think it should be accountable to not just the county board, but it should be accountable to a council of people around the county. Because what I find is when you're talking to other leaders in the community, everybody has a specific thing in mind as they look at this, right? This is going to address the lack of, or trying to increase home ownership in the inner city, or they think this is going to address increasing the living wage, or this is going to address poverty and tackling that, or reducing incarceration. So I think looking at all the leaders and making sure that there's a council of advisors who are directing this. I think that's important. It's not just one person. So that's been my history. It's about empowerment versus consolidating power and having all the answers for just one person.
Okay, mic to me. I'm going to thank you very much, but the audience over here is saying I can't let you all give extended speeches either. Hi.
Okay, so briefly, why? So power grab, none of the resources or assets, none of the decisions that we can make as elected officials involve anything that belongs to us. It belongs to you. I'm crystal clear about that. I don't think about power grab. I've never been entirely clear how that sort of applies to what we've done when we created the mental health board. We actually, functionally, we moved governance for one of the biggest divisions of the county away from, management-wise, there's a lot less of a role for the county executive. So in a sense, they have less power, but that wasn't what it was about. What it was about was, for the first time in 15 years, ER visits going down, involuntary detentions going down, getting finally out of warehousing people. To me, the big difference is I've got a record I can point to of making significant change. Things that are happening now weren't happening before. When I say we're serving thousands more people, that wasn't happening before. Debt was going down, it was going up before. We've added land and parks, fares and transit were going up. They're flat. 5 years in a row, they're flat. We didn't used to have a Department of Economic Development. And in terms of the community, one of the reasons that 5 years ago I was proud when I very first ran to have standing behind me Lamar Franklin, Mac Weddle, and Sam Williams is because I've known them for decades, working with groups like the Boys and Girls Club, where I remained on the board for 16 years. I wasn't doing that because I want to run for office. I'm doing that because I care about the 43,000 members that are there, that we serve, predominantly African American, who need an opportunity and are getting one. And I'll do that whether or not I'm in office, but not about a power grab.
Thank you very much. Hi, Jen. That's my colleague.
Yeah, proud to teach with Pam. This is for Chris Abele. Chris, you've said that you understand that poverty is one of the root causes of crime. So I'm asking you, why did you veto the living wage ordinance, a small $11.11 an hour that uses public funds to pay people?
As I said in my veto message to it, what I vetoed was $28 million less from family care. The way that ordinance was written, and I have been, for the record, remain a supporter of the federal minimum wage, the way that ordinance was written is the money coming from, that would pay for that came out of family care. And for anyone who's unclear, family care is an incredible program that serves the frail and the elderly. The county does this, and they do a really good job at it. What I said at the time in the message is, look, everybody in this room wants to be able to pay the best wage we can to anybody, but guess what? We're not doing anybody any favors when we do it in a way that takes from somebody else. And what I said I'd like to do, and I'd really like to do this, is find a way to do it in a sustainable way. And just here's an analogy. 5 years ago, the county fiscally was a mess, and I wasn't able to do what I'd like to do for the employees. 5 years later, because we're in better shape, I can say to employees, hey, 2.5% across the board raise, a $2,500 tuition reimbursement from zero. That's a grant, not a loan. And we can do that sustainably without cutting other services. That's worth working for. The worst thing we could do is to start something without knowing we're able to continue it. The goal isn't simply to be able to pay it. The goal is to be able to keep paying it and provide all the other services, and nobody disagrees with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Art, tell them who you are.
My name is Art Heitzer. I'm a lawyer, and this is directed to the two candidates for the Supreme Court. First of all, I thank you for coming and for hanging in here this morning. You were asked in your formal question to address the constitutional rights of equal protection under the law, and that's what my question relates to. And it's based on some of the writings of Justice Bradley earlier. I will tell you, having met you and been to your swearing in at Court of Appeals, that I was shocked to read the comments over 10 years after one of the most respected members of our law school class died of AIDS and what you called a politically correct disease, and that he was a degenerate without ever having met him. I know you've apologized, I accept that apology, but the sting does remain. My question going forward related to who is a person protected constitutionally. There's been other writings attributed to you related to conception, birth control. We have in other states measures that make illegal and criminal abortion or even early stage contraception. And so the question is to each of you, when do you believe the constitutional rights of personhood begin, at conception or at some other time? Thank you.
We want you up here.
Both of you, please.
Thank you for accepting my apology for writings that I did a quarter of a century ago when I was a college kid. Thank you for that. The question relates to when does personhood begin? And I think my opponent and I have taken the same stance on issues like this. We are not supposed to, under our ethics code, talk about our positions on these types of issues because our personal opinions really don't matter. The one commitment that I make in this race, the one commitment I've always made as a judge, is that I will always set aside my personal opinions, my political inclinations, my opinions in general. We all have those, but once we put those black robes on, we're supposed to set all of that aside and always follow the law. And that is the one commitment that I make to all of you and to all of the voters in the state of Wisconsin, regardless of how I feel about a particular law, regardless of whether it's been enacted by Republicans or Democrats. I apply the same principles, and I will always follow the law regardless how I feel about it.
Judge.
The significance of the very extreme and hateful writings of my opponent are that her career since then shows very little evidence of change. She deliberately articulated published opinions when she was 21, When I was 21, I was in graduate school, I was interning at the United Nations, and I was preparing for service in Peace Corps. That time of our history then was 1992. I was working for all of the people of Wisconsin as an Assistant Attorney General of the Department of Justice, as I was in 2006 when, as a practicing corporate attorney, my opponent published another opinion piece saying, essentially equating contraception with murder. And she continues to align herself with extreme, hateful comments in her campaign, using Sheriff David Clark, who has made his own very hateful comments about women and about gay people and about people of color as a fundraiser and principal component of her campaign in this race, and aligning herself with Justice Scalia, who, leaving aside his writings on the court, has made very hateful, extreme comments about people of color and about gays. And when someone like my opponent has such a thin judicial resume, these published opinions and extreme views are an important part of a record and part of the information voters need to use when they're deciding who to vote for. And as to the question as to whether life begins at conception, Rebecca Bradley and I have gotten that question before, and we've given the exact same answer, that our personal opinions are not relevant to our roles on the court, which are to apply the law fairly and thoughtfully with an open mind in a principled and disciplined fashion. I have a proven track record, having issued over 750 published, written appellate decisions, and they show me to be the fair and independent judge that you would want to have on our Supreme Court. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Chair?
My name is the father of Alderman Stanford. That's my name. We know that the judiciary is obligated to follow the law. That can sometimes be a convenient escape clause. I hope they won't try to employ it in response to my inquiry. Hemp, marijuana. Has many uses, legitimate uses, medicinal. I understand it's a good treatment for cancer or glaucoma, some others. It can be used to make fabric. It can also be used in place of fossil fuels. The yield is unlimited. It also has some recreational usage, I'm informed, and do believe. This is a referendum of the judiciary, who each has an opinion, because everybody has an opinion. Question: what is your opinion, or let me rephrase it, do you agree that marijuana should be legalized? That's the question. One other fact I want to point out. In the city of Milwaukee, in excess of 80% of those persons arrested by the Milwaukee Police Department are black. There's an abuse and misused, because the truth of the matter is that the frequency of usage among whites is at least as often and perhaps more, given the fair market price of marijuana. So my question again, should marijuana be legalized? Aye or nay, judiciary?
Any judges? Any judges?
Any judges or justices?
Or justices?
No one wants to answer your question, Judge.
I'm surprised.
This is, first of all, I'm going to take just a moment, because I didn't come here to attack my opponent. I came here to talk to you about myself, and I hope you don't appreciate the fact that she didn't really answer the question until the very end and just went on a diatribe about against me. I didn't come here to attack her, but there's something I wanted to share with all of you. I wrote some things that I'm not proud of. I have apologized unconditionally for what I wrote when I was a college student a quarter of a century ago. I'm getting there, but I've been attacked all day, so I think I get a minute to
Well, you
respond.
got in a shot or two, too. You
No,
all were
I-
both pretty good.
I think it's frightening, and it should be frightening to all of you, to have a judge who doesn't believe that people can change. The people in this room who have gotten to know me a little bit, I think you know who I am and where I come from, and I change because that's what happens. We grow up, we experience life, we interact with people who come from different backgrounds than we come from, and it changes us. And I think you should all be concerned that we have somebody on the bench who is apparently the exact same person she was 40 years ago. I'm not the same person that I was 25 years ago. I've changed and I've hopefully become a better person, and I continually try to become a better person. Now, answering the judge's question, that's exactly the type of policy question that should be decided by you, the people. And the way you decide that is to talk to your legislators and let your legislators know what your position is and what you think the law should be in the state of Wisconsin on that and any other issue. I don't take a position on an issue like that. It's not my job to take a position on that. My job is to follow the law. My personal opinion about whether drugs should be legalized or not, whether the war on drugs has been won or lost, that's not part of my job. My job is to always follow the law regardless of how I feel about it.
Does anybody else want to comment?
So, as a member of the judiciary, you can't give a definitive answer to it, but I'll tell you in my career as a defense attorney, a point that I made to judges very often when my clients were facing jail time or prison time because of possession of marijuana. I've known people, and I've represented people, who have done some very terrible, twisted, violent, hateful things as a result of alcohol. I have never represented someone who has done something like that because of marijuana. I just have yet to run across it. Judges are, particularly at the circuit court level, we are entrusted with a wide degree of discretion. How to deal with cases, what constitutes a violent offense, and what constitutes an offense that mandates imprisonment. And I'll tell you that I think we need to have a proper perspective on the kind of offense that possession of marijuana imposes. So without being able to definitively answer the question, which would be improper for a judicial candidate or a judge, I'll tell you that's my perspective on the issue. Thank you.
I have to do two things. I have to let these judges speak, but let me just say this. If you have any questions for Mr. Abele or Mr. Larson, I need to get him out of here because he's got a few other Can we do it that way? Okay. Can she? Okay. And then we'll get back to the marijuana. Or the question about the marijuana. Or so I've heard.
For the two of you, actually, we've heard a lot about the issue of, or the description in terms of the new powers invested in the Milwaukee County Executive as a power grab. And one of the things that you had commented, Mr. Abele, this morning is that what you are about is empowering the people. So to the two of you, and I'll kind of, it's the same question, but it needs to be rephrased a little bit differently. But I want you to talk about how do you feel people of Milwaukee County, and particularly African Americans, have been empowered by the expanded powers that Scott Walker and the state legislature has provided to the county executive office, and particularly in light of the fact that no other county executive in the state has some of those powers that you've been given. And then to you, Senator Larson, can you expound on, again, what concerns you most about these expanded powers, and how do you feel that they've empowered, or whether or not they have empowered, actually the citizenry?
Who's getting the question?
Well, thank you. It's a good question. One example is what I referred to just before. When the state changed the law to create the mental health board, that was voted 122 to 1, 2, something like that at the state level. So that's every Republican and every Democrat with 2 exceptions, and they're all elected officials. And here's the goal. The goal, as I said before, wasn't to grab power. The goal was to do a hell of a lot better by the people we serve there than we were doing already, and we have. And you know, here's the thing, the state legislature does not report to me. They can be lobbied and are lobbied by all of us. There was a referendum on the part-time board, and the people on the referendum voted 71 to 29. You know, I wouldn't presume to tell them they're wrong, but the law is the law. My goal has never been about anything other than as best I can to turn things that were going in the wrong direction to the right direction. And in terms of what it's meant, in terms of empowerment, I can tell you, 5 years later, we serve thousands more people than we did before, and we're doing a better job of it. So, you know, if the state decides they want to change that law, I'll respect it. If the state decides they want to change the law and there isn't a county executive, hey, if that's the way that makes the county I love perform better, I wouldn't fight that. I'd be a hurricane of support for that. It's not about me. We don't own government. You do. We do the best we can with the laws that we have to work with to deliver and empower as many people as possible. But I can say at the end of the day, you should look at the outcomes. I mean, there's the talk about power grab, and I can say 5 years in, we are serving thousands more people than we were before. We have more programs, created more jobs, add more programming. You know, is it enough? We can always do more. But power grab is not really the frame in which I think about it.
Okay, now Lena has a question too.
Well, actually, Larson did.
But Larson, you want to answer that, and then
Yeah.
just one more question, maybe.
Yeah.
'Cause then they gotta go. They gotta go.
I'll answer it just because the current
gotta
county
get out of
executive didn't answer it. For about I don't know, it's like the 5th time we've been at a forum where the question has not been answered as to why there's this consolidation of power, and specifically pointing at places where you haven't taken power yet doesn't mean you haven't taken power from other places. And so the referendum passed, so we respect the results of that. What it wasn't for is to create an emergency manager in Milwaukee County where one person gets to make all of these decisions. And I don't think that's empowering, to have one person to be able to decide the future of land sales with just having one of the persons sign off on it, removing the legislative oversight, removing the public approval of that. And I find it eerie, by the way, there's been a lot of election year conversions, right? And one of those things, as we've noticed, is there's been an eerie suspension of land sales since this election started, right? And all of those are decided nearly unilaterally by this county executive. And again, without an explanation about it, we're seeing it go the other way, where there was a request for unilateral policy-making authority. There was a request for near unilateral budgeting authority, right? It's a nuance that says if the budget is off by more than $1, the county executive gets to transfer any money he wants, cut programs, shift programs, and do what he wants. These are bills that he asked for, and the people he maxed out to, the Republicans he gave max contributions to, wrote them for him. So I find it frustrating that not only is that happening behind closed doors, but when he's asked directly by a neighbor about it, there's not an answer. But worse is that this continues. This continues to cut us out of the process. For the powers that exist, I don't intend to use them. I intend to go out to the public and sign a memorandum of understanding that says we're going to make sure there's an American-style check and balance in place again. This is our community. This is our land. And these are our powers. And so it's up to all of us when we're going to be making decisions about our future. That's what we're about. That's what we're about in empowerment, and that's why I've got the support of a lot of great elected officials, including Congresswoman Gwen Moore, including Val Phillips, including dozens of people, frankly, who were with this county executive, who have now turned the page and are ready to move forward for everybody.
I just want questions answered. One more from Lena on this issue, and then he's going, and then you can stay, and then any questions for Johnny.
Okay, I feel compelled. Chris and Chris to bring up an issue that has happened and flung into your campaign. And in particular, when we talk about empowering people, and we talk about many of the individuals have spoke about it here, mental health is a huge issue, and it's a huge issue in our county. Senator Larson, when we said, first of all, you've mischaracterized the exchange. And I want to make the record straight on that. And you called me when I walked into the doctor's office and we spoke, and I graciously accepted your apology. But I want to be clear that I came today because I thought the first thing that you should do is not only apologize but speak to the community, but I want to make sure everybody knows what was said because it's been misrepresented. So whether others want it or not, I want to make sure people know. Threw up my hands and we said hello. I threw up my hands and said really, because in the debate you said I don't like Lena Taylor. And that the reason, not for the county, not for the caucus, not for the party, that you took me off of finance. Everybody can go back and look at it themselves, but when you get done, I threw my hands up and said, really, because either way it goes, I didn't think the response was appropriate. So after that, you proceeded to tell me I'm the only one in Milwaukee that was a problem. And you proceeded to tell me that I was crazy. And you proceeded to tell me, did I take my meds? You proceeded to tell me, did I take my meds? And that because it's a long day. And then you said, enjoy your last one. Everyone knows that you and others, ever since I talked to Sandy Pash about running in this 10th, that it has been a mission to assassinate me politically. Regardless of all of that, you then put out a statement and said I yelled and so on and so forth. All the witnesses debunked it. And so what I am saying is when you called me and I was going into the doctor's office and I graciously accepted your apology, I said you can say two things. You can say you called me and you can say I accepted your apology. You said even more than that, suggesting I said we should turn the page on the county. Let me be clear. I'm sorry, 40 million people have mental health issues. The issue today, when you saw me in the hall over there, when you saw me sitting right here, your staff told me, they specifically told you not to apologize here, but to do it at Deneen and to do it at MLK. So, are you sorry you called me crazy? Are you sorry that you said I should take my meds? Are you that I don't take and I'm not crazy? The only thing I am is not controlled. The only thing I am is speaking truth to power. The only thing I am is whether you agree with me or not, I stand tall. So all I'm asking for you to do is do it right, Chris, because you did not. Not just for me, but for the people that were standing there who were offended. For the people who have mental health issues and would not say it. I'm asking you to do it right, Chris, because I was gracious enough to not say nothing.
Okay. Do you want to respond? And then I'm getting you out of here. And then I'm getting Johnny out of here. And then you
leave.
Okay, Lena?
Yes, Chris.
I am sorry.
For?
We had a private conversation.
It was not private, Chris. Don't lie.
Okay,
and
no back and forth.
And for
no back and let it talk.
But you know what, Chris? I apologize, but if you're going to say
let him
it was
talk.
private, Pam, I'm gonna sit down. But I want to say this, Chris. If you're gonna say it was private going on the Senate floor, that's
let him talk.
Not the Lena Taylor show.
Let him talk.
This is not about that.
Wait then, let him say. You interrupting him. Go ahead, brother.
I'm glad you got it back.
Let him talk.
He was sure you were doing it.
Go ahead. Talk.
No, we're look.
It's not private. Being disrespected all day.
Okay,
You said you're sorry, right?
Right, I said I was sorry, and I hope that we can move on. And when as soon as this, shortly after this happened, it became an issue. We did our best to reach out. We did our best to try and get a hold of you, and finally we called. I apologized sincerely, and want to move on. And we put out a statement apologizing, making sure people knew I apologized to you and anybody else. But frankly, I mean, that's not what the election is about.
Let's
And I
move
think,
on then.
No, I think it's.
Let's move on then.
Yeah.
Because he needs to go too.
Right.
And I want to give him the respect of letting him say bye too.
Hey,
Yeah,
I want to
that's-
be heard, Pam.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, you're going to be heard because I don't want to,
I need to leave here because it don't matter anymore.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for for Johnny? Hello? No questions for Johnny? Okay, you want to say, bye, Chris? Okay. Yeah, you can say goodbye.
Hello again, once again, family. Again, I want to thank you again for giving me this opportunity to address you, to have an opportunity to once again serve you. And I want your prayers, but I'm asking for your vote. So again, on April 5th, I'm looking forward to serving you again as your new City of Milwaukee Comptroller. Thank you, family. Enjoy your day and have a happy Easter.
Now I'm going back to the marijuana question. Okay, because that was the issue for the judges, or so I heard.
Thank you. Just a couple points. It is right that we can't make opinions or give our opinion about legislation in public. However, if a case comes up and a judge has the opportunity to write about in what we call dicta, not the main point of the case, but has the opportunity to write about why a particular enforcement of marijuana, in this case, needs to be corrected by the legislature, judges should have the courage to write about that in their decisions with respect to a specific case. The other point I want to make up is, the other point I want to make is that this is an example of law enforcement issues and the disparity in law enforcement. And I'll use the example.
Can we hear her? Thank you.
And I'll give you an example of 10 years ago. We were asked earlier today about law enforcement and the judiciary. 10 years ago, when I was a bar president, we set up a committee on the disparity of charging. And on that committee, heading that committee, was Carl Ashley, Judge Ashley, and Judge Gorens. And I was on that committee. And we brought together all the city attorneys from all the municipalities, and the district attorney, and the chiefs of police from all those municipalities, and we put together protocols about when you charge a criminal and when you charge municipal. Because what we identified in that committee and in that several months of work is the municipal, or outside of Milwaukee, the charges were always municipal instead of coming downtown.
Yeah.
And so we put together protocols which all of the municipalities adopted about when you charge marijuana first time for municipal and when you charge it in criminal. And that was eye-opening to the municipalities, that they didn't realize how much disparity they were doing until we had judges going out, setting up the committee, and coming back with a document that all the municipalities thereafter used. Question is, are they still using it? And so Judge Stamper's question is good. What are the municipalities doing in terms of law enforcement based on a document that a judge helped create? Thank you.
Okay, if you all want to respond, it's got to be real brief because we have to be out of this church. They do have events. So it's got to be real brief.
Real brief. I will say, unfortunately, I'm not going to answer, but when I look at cases that come in front of me, oftentimes what I was seeing was that that was the charge that was dismissed as part of a deal. And I will tell you, when someone tells me there's a prior record and I get it's filled with possession of marijuana, that is taken with a grain of salt. So in my mind, I'm not going to comment on whether it should be changed or not. I will apply the law as it comes before me. I will also say, I did use that picture of Joe Donald. I put it out. It was part of my investiture in which he swore me in as the presiding chief judge. I wasn't aware. As soon as I learned he was aware, I apologized to him. He said no worries. We are friends and colleagues. I will be fine after the election. Thank you.
Did you want to briefly, real brief, because these people have been everybody's been very kind to wait this long.
Thank you, and just in response to that, I think it speaks volumes that Joe Donald endorsed me. So having said that about marijuana, I've had private conversations as a private citizen with concerns about marijuana usage and unfair treatment for people. I believe that there are small amounts of marijuana usage that should be decriminalized. And also, the other thing that I think the legislature needs to study is second or subsequent offense penalties. It's ridiculous for someone to be having a prior possession of controlled substance in their past, and then because they're arrested for a blunt the second time around that they're charged with a felony. That saddles people with a record that we don't need. And so I think that the legislature really needs to take a look at quantities, and other states have these laws, why can't we? So thank you.
Thank you, and one last, Judge.
Right.
Real quick.
The judge's questions do raise issues about enhancing the circuit court judge's discretion, and the legislature and the Supreme Court can work with the legislature to move in that direction so that we can reduce the rates of incarceration and racial disparities in law enforcement at that level. The court system as a whole, one of my many volunteer activities is to be on the court-wide policy and planning advisory committee for the whole court system, and we've identified two critical issues for the following 2 years. One is substance abuse, one is juvenile justice. And as we look in both of those areas, hopefully we will be addressing some of the concerns that underlie the judge's questions.
Thank you. Sir?
Well, it's still morning. I want to say good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming out. I want to thank each and every one of you distinguished panelists today. We want to thank you for coming, and we appreciate the show. We want to really thank Pam for putting this together. Thank all of you guys and all these. But there is one thing I want to close with, and I want to say, we know when we go out to vote, I think from what you heard today, from your own gut feeling, you should take in consideration the character of the individual you're going to vote for and how they stand on issues and their integrity. Having that been said, I'd like to say thank you again from Community Brainstorming, and we all thank you, Pam. Great job.
I have my marching orders, and you can curse me out, but Judge Samper says it's time to go, and so does the pastor. I have my marching orders. I take orders too. It is time to go. I thank all of you for coming. I think we had a wonderful panel. You argue with him.
An MCM production.